Emery is 15, and he is the weakest boy in his father's house. His family sits at the very bottom of the noble ranks in a small kingdom on the coast of Britain, and everyone above them knows it. His clothes are patched leather that smells of the animal it came from. His arms shake after a dozen sword strikes. Every morning he trains anyway, because his father is a war hero and Emery wants, more than anything, to make the man proud. What he is actually good at is books. He reads every scroll in the family library. He wanders the woods finding the herbs his dead mother wrote about. And he has spent months secretly carving a wooden puzzle box with a tiny figurine that rises when the lid opens. The box is for Princess Gwyneth, the king's daughter, who is turning 16. She and Emery met years ago in the royal library. Both of them motherless, both of them addicted to maps and old stories. She is the only person in the kingdom who treats him like he is worth talking to. So he rides to her birthday feast with the box in his pouch, and the night falls apart in stages. First, the highest-ranked noble in the kingdom, a fat man named Fantomar, greets Emery's father with an insult and lets his son Abe say out loud that the Ambroses smell. Emery says nothing, because his father has told him never to make trouble with that family. Then the gift-giving line reaches them. Everyone ahead has brought jewels and chests of gold. Emery looks at his carved wooden box, decides it is a joke, and keeps it in the pouch while his father apologizes to the king for having nothing to give. Then Gwen walks past every noble in the hall, cuts off Abe mid-compliment, grabs Emery by the arm, and drags him out to the garden. That part goes well. They talk for an hour about the world map her uncle brought back from 2 years of traveling, about Africa and China and everywhere she wants to see. She tells him he is a good friend. He is halfway through handing her the box when the king and Fantomar walk into the garden. Fantomar tells the king to stop his daughter from playing with this boy, then orders Emery to lift his head. In the moonlight, Emery's eyes are the wrong color, and Fantomar has been waiting a long time to say the word out loud. The boy is a half-blood. His mother was a Fey Cruton, one of the forest people the kingdom has been trying to burn out for generations. The Cruton are the reason the king's own wife is dead. Emery has no idea what any of this means. He watches his father, the lion's Fong, drop to one knee and admit it. He watches the king's face close. Gwen looks at him with an expression he cannot read and says she does not think they can be friends. Her father drags her away. The box falls, the figurine breaks on the stone, and the palace guards walk Emery out through gates that shut behind him. The ride home is silent. His father promises to explain everything tomorrow. Tomorrow does not happen. That night, marauders come over the wall with torches, shouting that they are here to kill Cruton lovers. Geoffrey shoves his son into a hidden passage in the cellar and holds the door alone. Through a broken slit in the wood, Emery watches his father cut down man after man until his breath gives out, until a blade opens his back, until the last thing he manages is to throw himself upright, pin one marauder to the wall, and scream at his son to run. Emery runs. The stables are full of dead horses and the house is on fire, so he runs west into the woods with riders behind him, trips, and goes into the freezing river. The current takes him under. 2 marauders stand on the bank, agree that nobody survives that water, and ride away. At the bottom of the lake, with his lungs burning, something wraps around his leg and drags him back onto the mud. He never finds out what. He lies on the bank soaked and shaking and dying, looks up at the 3 stars lined in a row that he has watched his whole life, and asks them not to let him die. The middle star lights up. A beam comes down. Emery's body lifts off the mud and vanishes. He opens his eyes under a blue sky, in front of a white castle 10 times the size of his king's, in a line of teenagers being marched toward a purple tower by armored men. His first thought is that he is dead and looking for his father. An old magus in gray stops the line and speaks directly into tens of thousands of heads at once. Welcome to Magus Academy. They are the chosen few pulled from 1,000 human worlds. They have 7 days. Whoever proves worthy gets to come back. Whoever fails gets sent home with the whole thing wiped out of their memory like a dream. Then he stamps every palm in the crowd with a burning symbol, and suddenly Emery can understand every language around him. The symbol works like a page he can read inside his own mind. His name, his age, his world, his class. Planet 1002 Earth. Class 77. A Roman boy his own age hears the same number and immediately starts organizing, because if they are all from the same world they can at least figure out what happened to each other. That is Julian, a young noble who has clearly done this kind of thing before. 3 more Earth kids come over. Clea, from Alexandria, who is bronze-skinned, blunt, and aware of exactly how beautiful she is. Chumo from the Far East, who says his name and then almost nothing else for days. And Thrax, a Thracian built like a door, who introduces himself to Julian by calling him a Roman pig. These 5 are, though none of them know it yet, about to become the strongest magi Earth has ever produced. The tower splits them into classes, and Class 77 gets a woman in purple named Minerva. She explains what a magus is by pulling the wind out of the entire room and holding it spinning above her palm, which is the first magic most of these kids have ever seen. Trillions of people live in this galaxy. Only a few 100,000 can touch the primordial energy the gods left behind when they finished fighting over whether the universe should have life in it or nothing at all. That energy comes in 10 elements: fire, wind, water and earth, then lightning, ice, plant and metal, and then the 2 rare ones that hold everything else together, light and darkness. Then she brings out a crystal ball to scan everyone for affinity, and this is where the class learns who matters. Most acolytes come up with 1 element. A handful get 2. The kids in the black and white uniforms at the front, who have already made it clear that the lower world children should sit in the back, come from Kalios, an upper-class magus world that gets invited here every 5 years, and they scan well and know it. Clea comes up with 3 at once: wind, water and lightning, and the room reacts like she is a goddess. Emery is last. The ball hangs over him and goes dark, and stays dark long enough that he decides he is nothing, which is what he has always assumed anyway. Then it turns blue, water, then it splits yellow, earth, then green, plant, then black. 4 elements, one of them darkness. 1 acolyte in 1,000. Minerva flies down off her platform to ask his name, and for the first time in his life every eye in a room is on Emery and nobody is laughing. It lasts about half an hour. The second test measures 3 things: battle power, which is physical; spirit power, which is how much elemental energy you can actually handle; and spirit aptitude, which is how fast your body learns to circulate that energy at all. Aptitude is the one that matters. Rank S learns a new element in a day. Rank A needs 3. The Kalios students post battle powers in the teens and spirit powers over 30. Silva, a girl in a heavy veil who turns out to have the slit iris of a half-blooded bloodline race, posts a battle power of 22 and a spirit power of 41. Clea lands spirit power 37 at rank S and blows a kiss to the crowd. Emery steps onto the symbol and the room goes silent, because everyone wants to see what a quadruple affinity acolyte looks like. Battle power 5, the lowest in the class. Spirit power 20, also the lowest in the class. And then aptitude, rank B. He asks to be tested again. Minerva lets him. Comes back identical. The Kalios students do not even bother to lower their voices. It has been 1,000 years since this academy last admitted a rank B. The boy with 4 elements is the single worst learner in the building, and multiple affinities make it worse, not better, because he has to circulate each element separately and he is slower than everyone at all 4. Minerva tells him kindly that aptitude is the most important factor there is, and then tells him to do his best anyway, which is the most honest cruelty available to her. The rules for the 7 days are simple. Reach spirit power 30 and become a rank 2 acolyte. Get an acceptance letter from one of the academy's institutions. Fail either one and you go home with a blank memory. Emery does the arithmetic in his head. Rank B needs more than a week just to finish circulating 1 element. He has 4 days of usable time and he has to do both. That night is the first time he lets himself understand that his father is actually dead. He decides 2 things before he falls asleep. He is going to find out what a crouton is, and he is going to become strong enough that the next time somebody kicks in his door, he is not the one hiding behind a cupboard. In the morning he goes with Julian to the Earth Institute, a desert city built out of limestone with a yellow pillar at its heart. Their guide is Darius, an Earth Lord Magus with a farmer's hands and a preacher's timing, who argues that Earth is the strongest element in the universe on the grounds that fire needs heat and water needs a sea, while Earth is the thing you are standing on 95% of the time. He proves it by turning a boulder into a walking stone giant and riding its shoulder. Behind the pillar's gate is the Stone of Origin, a black rock that presses down on everyone who comes near it. First-year acolytes get half a day inside it once, and that is all. Emery makes it 11 steps toward the rock before the pressure stops him. He sits down and closes his eyes, and in the dark of his mind the black rock speaks to him. Calm thy mind, be one with earth, steadfast thy heart, unmoved, unshaken. The rock grows until it swallows him whole, and he holds still and half a day disappears. He comes out with 1 point of spirit power. Julian comes out with 3. That is the shape of the whole trip. Out of 1,000 acolytes, 40 move the test stone on the first day. 100 manage it by nightfall. Julian breaks through on the second day, gets his stone skin spell, and offers to tell Emery exactly how he did it. Emery says no. If somebody hands him the trick, he never actually learns anything, and he is done being the person other people carry. So he sits at the gate all night, alone, while the crowd thins out around him. By the third morning, everyone he arrived with is gone into the next room and Emery is the only face left from his group. He has gained 2 points in 3 days. He pushes until the black rock will not appear in his mind at all anymore, just darkness with him sitting in the middle of it. Darius looks up his file and finds a rank B with 4 affinities. His colleague Felicia says the obvious thing, which is that in any lesser academy in the galaxy a rank B with 4 elements would be treated as a gift from the gods, and that here he is simply going to fail on the 7th day. Darius watches the boy who has now sat in front of a rock for 24 hours straight, tells her that aptitude is not everything, and goes over to tell Emery to go home and eat something. Emery stands up and immediately falls over, because his legs have gone numb. Julian carries him out. Clea has been waiting at the portal all night and had to be talked out of coming to fetch him. She marches the whole group to dinner and puts food in front of him, and for a moment it is fine, because these 4 strangers from 4 corners of a world he will probably never see again are being kinder to him than anyone since Gwen. Then 5 Kalios acolytes stroll over to the table to say, loudly, that the monkey with rank B is the first acolyte in the history of the academy who could not finish the basics in 3 days, and that their pets are more deserving of a place here. Thrax puts his fist through the table and stands up. Julian stands with him, mostly to keep him from getting killed. The fight is short and it is educational. The blonde Kalios leader freezes Thrax's legs to the floor with an ice spell before Thrax gets a step. Julian blocks the follow-up shot with his stone-skinned arm, and the ice sticks to the stone and freezes the arm solid. Then the other arm, and now both of Earth's fighters are ornaments. The Kalios boys are laughing about primitive monkeys. Emery is unarmed, and physically the weakest person in the room, and he has been watching how the ice bullet behaved when it hit Julian. So he throws a bowl and a spoon into the path of the next 2 spells. Both bullets spend themselves freezing crockery in midair and clatter to the floor. It buys 3 seconds. Clea uses them. A gust of wind knocks the Kalios boys back on their heels, and then a lightning arrow cracks out of her palm, threads between her own friends, and shatters the ice off Thrax's legs and Julian's arms without touching either of them. 2 elements, 2 spells on day 3. That is the moment the Kalios group stops laughing, glances at each other, and decides they are feeling generous today. Their leader turns to leave and walks straight into Chumo, who has somehow moved behind all 5 of them without a single person in a crowded hall seeing him do it. They go. Everyone at the table knows the truth, which is that without Clea they would have lost badly. Thrax spends the night slamming doors and repeating that if he had held a weapon he would have ended that boy. So in the morning he drags the boys to the Institute of Combat, and Emery goes with him because underneath everything he still wants to be the knight his father was. The Combat Institute is a stone city inside the academy, and its greeter is a bald, bearded, enormously loud magus called Vico who addresses every new arrival as a soft bone. He shows them 2 ways to earn a place. One is the gauntlet, a 100-meter machine of spinning wheels, pikes and swinging axes that will kill you if your one-use protective vest is already spent. The other is the wooden puppets, which fight you with your own weapon at exactly your own battle power, so brute strength gets you nothing and cleverness gets you a point. Thrax picks a spear and wins by tackling the thing and beating its head off. Chumo picks a bow. Julian picks a sword and shield. Emery picks a sword, stands there in standby, and watches all 3 of them fight before he touches the start button, because studying the problem is the only advantage he has ever had. Then he parries the puppet's opening thrust, puts the blade through its chest, sees the marauder from his cellar instead of a wooden face, and smashes it into the wall screaming. The reward drops swordsmanship techniques straight into his head, and years of clumsy practice suddenly make sense. He beats level 2. He loses to level 3 3 times and gets up each time, and by the end of it his battle power has gone from 5 to 11 and he cannot stop grinning. The gauntlet is the part that nearly kills him. He plans the route from watching the others, jumps the platforms, times the spinning traps by ear the way he once studied construction with his father's scholar, and then an axe catches him in the 3rd section and burns out his protector. Below him, Julian is screaming at him to get down and Vico is telling him nobody has to push this hard. Emery looks at his own shaking legs and recognizes them. They are the legs of the boy who watched through a slit in a cupboard. So he stops being calm. Something snaps open in him, the blades start to look slower than they are, and he runs the last 50 meters of live steel with no protection at all and comes off the other end untouched. Then he collapses and burns with fever, and wakes half a day later in an infirmary bed with all 4 of his friends in the room and rain on the window. While he was out, 3 acolytes tried the same thing after their protectors failed and were cut in half. Julian wants to know what he was thinking. Emery has no answer. The board puts him at rank 101. The Combat Institute takes the top 100. What he does not know is that one of the 5 combat magi, the slender one, has been watching him since the moment he walked in. He has 2 days left, spirit power 24, and a target of 30. Clea takes him to the Water Institute, which is a beach with a lake at its center and a training dome under the water. The guiding magus there is Carla, and she gives Emery half a day at the Water Origin Stone. In his mind, the stone hands him one line: water is always flowing, never ending, adapting, and drops him into a river that turns into the river he drowned in. He panics, remembers the line, stops fighting the current, and comes out with 2 points. Carla checks his file, sees the aptitude, and says out loud that it is a shame. Then Clea asks her to actually help, and Carla gives Emery the first piece of real strategy anybody has offered him. Emery has spent his crucial first 3 days with Darius, who measures spirit power by asking a boy to shove a rock, which Carla considers the most old-fashioned nonsense in the academy. Her point is that a single dripping droplet will hollow out stone given long enough. Then she asks him what earth and water have in common, and Emery says they are opposites. One refuses to move and the other refuses to hold a shape. That is the right answer, and it earns him the thing he actually needed. A magus with several affinities gains most on the secondary elements, and the secondary element that sits between earth and water is plant. Emery has 4 affinities and has been grinding the one that suits him worst. He has spent his whole childhood in the woods with his dead mother's herb notes, and it takes a stranger to point out that the forest is where he should have started. The Plant Institute is a single tree so large he cannot see the top of it, and it is called the Elder's Respite. On his way in, a girl in a green dress walks up to him, leans in, and sniffs him. This is Silva, the veiled acolyte with the slit snake eyes and the highest scores in their class. She informs him that he smells different from everyone else, and then that he smells weak, and then she leaves. The Plant Origin Stone gives him a warmer welcome than the others did. Where earth crushed him and water nearly drowned him, Plant tells him that it grows, emerges, and breathes life into what surrounds it, and then splits him into 2, for 1,000 copies of himself, and the whole thing is pleasant. He walks out with 2 more points. Spirit power 28. Too short. Which is when the entire institute empties out, because a mission has just been posted. The man on the platform is a dwarf named Grom from the Crafting Institute, and he is holding a bottle of green essence potion, which raises the spirit power of any low-ranked acolyte who drinks it. He needs an ingredient that grows 1 night a year, and tonight is the night. The 4-leaf moon clover, which only glows for someone with the plant element and only after dark. Anyone who brings one gets a potion. Whoever brings the most gets made a disciple of the alchemy path. Emery needs both of those things tonight, or he goes home with an empty head. He gets a sword and a map and heads west into the swamp, and this is where the story stops being a school story. The forest is full of things his palm helpfully labels for him. Fireflies the size of birds with a battle power matching his own. Drakes the size of crocodiles that double it. He is about to walk into black water when a chubby first year called Fatty stops him, laughs at him for jumping, and then introduces him to the group he has attached himself to. Their leader is a 5th-rank second year named Cole, who failed to get into the Alchemists last year and does not intend to fail twice. Cole's offer is blunt. He watches their backs, they hand him every clover they find, and each of them still gets 1 potion out of it. With Cole our topper, who is built like a wall and lifts drakes one-handed, and Mags, a fire and plant girl who can cook. Emery takes the deal, eats roasted drake meat with strangers, and for 1 evening feels like part of something. 2 hours later he tugs on a 4-leaf clover that turns out to be bait, and a 3-meter angler vine pulls him into the air upside down. Topper hacks at its legs, the vines grow back harder than metal, Mags cannot get a clean shot, and then the thing takes a bolt of green light through the shoulder and Silva walks out of the bushes. She calls her entangle, closes her fist, and crushes a level 3 beast into pulp in front of 5 people who cannot do it between them. Then she stores the corpse in her ring and turns to leave, because she killed it and therefore it is hers. Cole calls her a half-breed and puts his spear at her throat. Silva points out that 4 men needing backup against 1 girl is not much of an argument. Cole tells her that her kind are not human, not even girls, and therefore enemies by definition. Emery has heard this exact reasoning before. It was shouted by men with torches on the night his father died, and it is now coming out of somebody standing on his side of the fight. Silva asks him which side he will fight on, them or his own. He does not get to answer because she attacks and Cole matches her, and when she tries to break the encirclement she comes straight at Emery as the weakest link. He is ready for that. He throws his inedible ration bread at her, drops his sword the instant their blades meet because he knows he cannot win a strength contest, and tackles her flat, then holds on and shouts for the others to hurry with his face buried where it should not be. Cole entangles them both. Silva calls him a pervert and cannot cast a spell. Then Cole loosens the roots around her hand, puts a spear tip against her fingers, and offers her a choice between giving up her ring and losing them one at a time. Emery, tied to her chest, can feel her heart going. He tells Cole he is going too far. Cole drives the spear down, grazes Emery's neck, and laughs that of course he was not serious. He is not stupid enough to get punished over a half-breed. That is when the sky turns white and a sound lands inside everyone's skull. The second one puts 4 of them on their knees. Fatty runs. Cole meets Emery's eyes for 1 second, then leaves with Mags and Topper, and Emery is tied to a girl who despises him in a swamp that something enormous has just walked into. Topper is the one who comes back. He hooks the roots with the back of his axe until Silva can break free, and she rewards Emery with a sword at his throat and then a slap across the face, which Emery agrees he has earned. They run, and a scream stops Emery, and he goes toward it, and Silva follows him while telling him there is no benefit to being a busybody. What they find is a red dragon eating Fatty. Magus Erica, the woman who announced the mission that afternoon, is slumped against a tree holding her own stomach closed. On the dragon's head stands an elf in scarlet armor with long golden hair, and when his gaze crosses Emery's, Emery cannot move a finger. The elf lifts a hand, drags Erica through the air by nothing at all, takes her by the throat, and calls her a pretentious human. Lightning hits his arm. A portal tears open overhead and the Academy's magi come down out of it, and one of them is Darius, who covers himself in a suit of sparkling rock, tells 3 terrified children to run, and flies straight at the red demon. They run. The dragon's head turns. Emery feels his own death arriving and screams at the other 2 to jump, and the breath goes past them close enough to blister his skin. Topper does not jump in time. His lower half is gone, melted, bones showing, and he is somehow still alive for the 5 seconds it takes his face to char, with one hand out toward Emery and his mouth shaping the words "help me." Emery starts forward. Silva catches his arm and tells him it is too late and drags him into the trees. Deeper in the forest they find Cole and Mags again, standing over a bleeding elf with ears twice the length of a human's. Silva explains what nobody has bothered to tell Emery yet. Elves are humanity's mortal enemy, and fighting that war is the reason the Academy exists at all. Cole is not interested in reporting the prisoner. He wants the contents of the dying elf's ring, and he thrusts for the skull. The elf swats the spear aside without effort, appears behind Cole, touches his shoulder, and remarks that the boy's physique is not bad and there is an ounce of talent in him. Acceptable, he says. Then the portal opens and 6 orcs come out of it with 3 cloaked elves behind them. Mags gets 2 steps before a spear pins her to a tree. Emery's palm reads the orcs at battle power 50 and gives the elves 3 question marks, and the leading elf's glance locks Emery and Silva in place so completely that they cannot speak. The old elf and the leader exchange a few words in a language Emery does not know, and something in it sounds like an apology between people who used to be friends. Then the old elf says he has no choice, and a black wisp comes out of his chest and goes into Cole's, and his body drops with the eyes open. What stands up wearing Cole kills 3 orcs in seconds with black orbs that need only to touch a thing for it to die, then swats aside lightning like a curtain. The 3 elves take it apart anyway. One traps the orbs in a mirror of liquid, one keeps the lightning coming, and the third goes to smoke, reappears behind Cole, and takes both his legs off at the thigh. They stab him unconscious, drag him through the portal, and mention that they only caught this one because it had been fighting Aegis for days and had just moved into a new body. Then the leader looks at the dead elf, says one soft word over him, and tells the others to kill the children. Silva burns her last card, a triangular pendant from her parents that throws a shield over both of them, which she holds with her teeth clenched while coughing blood, until the shield cracks and the pendant turns to dust. The Academy's magi are getting closer, so the elves leave rather than risk it. 2 orcs stay behind for the fun. Silva's battle power is 30. Emery's is 11, and he says so out loud, and she tells him that he is not brave, he is an idiot, and they are both going to die. Then she drinks half a bottle her clan leader gave her for exactly this, and throws him the rest. The potion is a bloodline booster, and it hurts like being burned alive. Green scales come up Silva's face and her eyes go fully serpent. Emery's hearing sharpens until he can hear a river he cannot see. His nails go into the soil like claws, Fur comes up on his face, and his palm tells him what his mother left him. Fey bloodline activated. Battle power 11 becomes 36. He overshoots his first charge and runs straight past an orc into a tree, because he has never been fast before. Then he learns it in about 30 seconds. He cuts one orc's shoulder open, gets punched into an oak hard enough to cough blood, drops the giant with a thrown stone straight to the forehead the way a boy in an old story once did, and finally takes its head off in midair. It is his first kill, and what he feels is not horror. It is delight, and it lasts exactly long enough for the second orc to get behind them. Silva rolls clear. Emery does not. The spear goes through his chest and stops a few inches short of her head. He looks down at her with a hole in him and tells her he is glad it missed. Then he snaps the shaft, pulls the head out of his own body, and puts it through the orc's eye. Silva kills the last one, drops next to him and says out loud that they survived. He does not answer. His pulse is going out under her fingers. For the first time in her life, somebody outside her own clan has put themselves between her and a weapon, and she has no idea what to do with that, so she runs, not toward the institute but back toward the battlefield where the dragon is, to find someone who can heal him. Behind her, a black wisp lifts out of the dead elf and slides into the hole in Emery's chest. Emery wakes in the dark with no walls. His father is there and says he is dead, and that his son should not be standing here, and that the answer was never strength. It is finding a purpose. Gwen is there too, and what comes out of her is that he is a filthy poor noble who could not even save his father, and that he is not even human. A single-horned white wolf the size of a house looks him in the eye, breathes at him, and goes. And then something with no face and a mouth that does not move calls him more interesting than expected, promises he will forget all about this, and says they will meet again soon. He wakes up with Minerva leaning over him at dawn and no hole in his chest at all. Just a scar. Silva has already dragged herself back with the Magi and is now loudly informing everyone that she is not friends with anyone here, which is how Emery knows she is fine. The bag he grabbed on the way out is not his. It is Cole's, and it has 11 four-leaf moon clovers in it. Silva argues, correctly, that the corpses and the dying girl are not going to be submitting anything before dawn, and takes 2 for herself as payment. Emery hands in the other 9. It turns out the entire year found fewer than 20 clovers between them, and the next best submission was 5. So Grom announces that the harvest is the worst in a century, and he will therefore not be taking an apprentice this year. Minerva walks in, leans down until her face is level with the dwarf's, and starts playing with his beard while asking whether he is really going back on his word to her student. Grom turns roughly the color of his own robes and tells the boy to follow him. On the way, he makes Emery promise to always say good things about him to Magus Minerva. Golden City is glass towers and flying boats and stairs that move on their own, and Grom's flying boat drops them at the Apothecary Institute, where the dwarf hands Emery to a senior apprentice named Cedric and stamps his palm. Apothecary Apprentice. Rank 1. 1 requirement down. Emery drinks a green essence potion on the spot, in front of Cedric, and it takes him from 28 to 30. Rank 2 Acolyte. He has passed. On the last afternoon of the last day, the worst learner in the history of the Academy has passed. Cedric, who is friendly the way a man is friendly to a client, notes that he is probably the least talented acolyte he has ever met, then takes him to the Magus Guild in the city, where a red-skinned, horned clerk named Aeon looks at his status and delivers the bad news. Earth Spirit, initial stage, incomplete. Water Spirit, incomplete. Plant Spirit, incomplete. Darkness Spirit, inestimable. Emery has the number, but he does not have the understanding behind it because he bought the last 2 points in a bottle. Without a completed element, he cannot claim a starting pack and he cannot cast anything at all, and Aeon estimates it would take him 2 weeks of solid work to finish even one. He has hours. Which is when Cedric gets to the reason he came. He knows Grom hands out those potions every year, and he could hear more than 1 bottle in Emery's pouch. He offers to buy Emery basic spells outright, 1 spell per potion. Aeon slams his ledger shut and tells the boy that the potion is worth 5 spells, not 1, and that Cedric is a shameless man. Emery, who understands perfectly well that he is the least informed person in the room, does the smart thing. He puts 2 bottles on the counter and asks the grumpy one to choose for him. So Aeon does, out of spite as much as kindness. Stone Skin because defense keeps you alive. Whip Splash for offense. The Darkness Spirit Manual, since Emery never got into that Origin Stone room at all. Dark Smoke, for running away from things he cannot beat. And then a rare one out of a carved box, Fragmentation, which separates a plant into its component parts and will make an apothecary apprentice's life enormously easier. Cedric slaps the counter, complains that he is now making no profit whatsoever, and pays. for spells and a manual, bought with 2 bottles Emery earned by nearly dying in a swamp. High above all of this, the headmaster of the Magus Academy, an old man called Altus Drayden, is hearing the report on the night's attack. A government investigator confirms it was not an invasion but an off-the-books operation. A small elf force chasing one particular elf deep into human territory, led by Aegis, the Red Demon. One acolyte was taken alive and nobody knows why. Several acolytes are dead. Altus tells his magi that the war has arrived at the Academy's front door, and that their job is still to raise the children who will fight it. On the last night, the 5 from Earth make a pact. Clea cuts her palm and bleeds into a cup of wine, and Julian follows, and Thrax follows while complaining about drinking a Roman's blood, and Chumo, and Emery last. Julian lays out what they are. He holds the line, Clea and Thrax hit, Chumo works from the shadows, and Emery supports from the back. Emery does not like being the support. He agrees anyway, and privately swears he will not stay the boy who hid behind a cupboard. In the morning, 10,000 acolytes stand in front of the purple tower to be ranked. Clea places 91st among the elemental acolytes. Thrax scrapes in at 99th among the fighters and will not shut up about it. Julian checks his own number and decides not to share it. Near the top, 5 names sit at rank 4 and rank 5 while Emery is still rank 2, and one name, Vita, appears on both lists at once. Then the crystal shows the acolytes who failed, and Emery reads the name Fatty, and understands that in this world dying is ordinary enough to be a line on a list. Silva drifts over to stand next to him, claims the view is better here, and meets his friends. Thrax challenges her to a fight on the spot. She tells him he should worry about surviving at home first. Thrax says nobody in his country could touch him now. She tells him to just watch. Then Altus raises his staff, 10,000 palms burn at once, and Emery's numbers change in front of his eyes. Battle power 16 becomes 11. Spirit power 30 becomes 20. Restriction spell placed. Silva, who comes from a higher world, is not affected at all, and she explains what nobody else will. Every acolyte from a lower world gets a restriction laid on them before they go home, so that a backward planet does not leap ahead on borrowed knowledge. Their strength drops, their spells mostly stop working, and their mouths are sealed too. Try to tell anyone on your own world about the Academy and no words come out. Everything they earned this week stays here until they return. Julian, who has been polite to everyone for 7 days straight, finally loses his temper and calls it what it is. Their world will stay a lower world for as long as anyone above them decides it should. Silva's stare shuts him up. Then Emery apologizes for him, and she answers the question anyway. The restriction lifts when you reach a high enough rank, or when your world grows strong enough to break the spell on its own. Then she tells Emery to come back next year and return the favor, and the light takes her. Emery wakes up on a riverbank in Britain with the smell of grass in his nose. It has been 7 days for him. On Earth, months have passed. He walks upstream to what used to be his home and finds crows, ash, and 12 bodies. His father is still in the cellar, unburned and rotting, surrounded by the marauders he took with him. Emery moves the fallen pillar aside on his own, which he could not have done a week ago, wraps his father in cloth from the cupboard he once hid behind, and carries him out on his back. He buries him beside his mother's headstone and tells her that her husband missed her, and that he does not blame either of them for what he is. Then he digs 12 more holes for the servants and knights he grew up around, and finishes as the sky turns orange. That is when 2 horsemen ride in, delighted, because their boss has been waiting for proof that the last Ambrose is dead. Emery does not run. He picks up a stone and puts it in the first man's forehead, and while they are still laughing about it he sets his feet. The marauder comes in expecting to butcher a child and finds himself blocked, then outpaced, then outthought, because Emery has swordsmanship level 3 in his head and a body that has been rebuilt from the ground up. He takes the man's sword hand off at the wrist. The second one refuses to believe it even while it happens and pays for that. Emery kills him, and it is nothing like killing an orc. He hesitates for a long moment first and hates himself for the hesitation, and then does it anyway because the alternative is a man riding home with news that the Cruton boy is alive. Before that, he gets one name out of them. Their chief is called Podrig. Then he rides off with a wound in his lower back that is deeper than he thought, and somewhere in the dark a voice he half recognizes tells him he is naive, stupid beyond help, and on his own this time. He falls off the horse and someone picks him up. He wakes in a round hut of straw and wood that smells of boiling herbs, being tended by an old woman everyone calls Granny and a young man named Lanzo. Granny is a druid, a healer the surrounding settlements bring their dying to. So nobody in the village of Mistire asks a stranger where he came from. That is how they live. Emery repays her the only way he knows. He fetches herbs. And the moment his hand closes on a purple-backed leaf, the analyze spell he bought in Golden City fires by itself, because it belongs to the Apothecary Institute rather than to any element, and the restriction cannot touch it. A full readout of the plant's properties opens in his mind. Then the Academy offers him a contribution point for adding it to the galaxy's database. Emery stands in a herb garden in Britain and understands that he is holding a fortune. 10 unknown plants that afternoon. Later, with the fragmentation spell, 10 points each instead of 1, because taking a plant apart teaches the database far more than touching it does. A rank 2 ingredient, a blue powder Granny guards carefully, is worth 30 on its own. Months pass and he becomes, quietly, the most valuable person in the settlement. He improves Granny's methods until her healing paste dries around twice as fast as it used to. He works out a stamina potion, a strength paste, a cleansing potion that kills disease. He passes his growing techniques on to the villagers and Mistire brings in its biggest harvest anyone can remember. Granny watches a boy invent in weeks what she spent decades learning, and tells him nature loves him. The work itself teaches him the magic. Tilling soil, hauling water, growing things, day after day of it pushes his understanding of plant to the initial stage, then the middle and drags earth and water up behind it. Only darkness stays blank. He sits in a cave for hours and gets nothing. Across the world, the other 4 are learning what the restriction really costs. Chumo turns up in his father's palace in Dongbyo after a week missing and cannot explain where he went, because his mouth will not form the words. His stepmother, the queen, and his 2 half-brothers have been waiting for exactly this. They produce a servant who found him sleeping in the wine room on the night of the kingdom's most sacred festival, and the king, who cannot protect a concubine's son against that much evidence, throws a sword down at his feet and banishes him until he brings honor back to the crown. Chumo bows to the floor, walks out with his mother, and promises to return. Behind him, a shrine priestess tells the king she has had a vision of a black 3-legged bird leaving the kingdom, and that it means great change is coming. The king cannot imagine it has anything to do with the son he just exiled. Julian runs home to Rome and finds soldiers at his family's gate and the house stripped bare. His father, a governor in Asia Minor, was accused of treason by political rivals while Julian was gone. The Senate believed the evidence, executed his father and his uncle in the public square, confiscated everything, and exiled the women and children on the grounds that the sins of the father are not the sins of the son. Julian, who is 16, is now the head of House Kaiser. He finds the merchant holding his father's hidden savings, houses his aunt and his sister Celia with all of it, and enlists in a legion at the lowest rank there is, because in Rome the only road back to a name is war. Thrax has the opposite problem. Back among the Maidi, his new body makes him unbeatable. He passes the warrior initiation 3 years early, almost single-handedly holds a neighboring village against a GD raid, and within a month is being sung about as the son of Ares. Chiefs start sending him their daughters. He turns all of them down for Sura, the girl he has wanted since childhood, and is 2 months into a life of ale, feasting and an upcoming wedding when a Roman cavalry column rides into his village. The envoy wants an alliance. Mithridates is coming from the east, and the GD are massing thousands half a week's march north to take advantage of it. The village wants to stone him. Thrax is the one who shuts everybody up and asks the only question that matters, to what end, and what happens to our women and children while we are away fighting for Rome. The Roman promises Rome's protection, and Thrax believes him, partly because of a Roman he already knows. That night he gives Sura a bracelet of hunted bone. She gives him a shield she had forged, and the wedding waits for the war. And in Alexandria, the girl the others know as Clea has a private study inside the Great Library, because she is Cleopatra the 7th, third daughter of the 12th Ptolemy. She spends 2 months cultivating instead of studying and pushes both wind and water to the middle stage. Then her sister's vizier comes to fetch her, because Berenice, who is holding the throne while their exiled father is off in Rome, is drowning in a room full of foreign envoys and cannot answer them. Clea walks in, stands beside her sister, and negotiates with every delegation in the room in 10 languages without a translator, which the Egyptians take as proof that she is the one royal who loves them. What none of them know is that the languages come from the mark on her palm. Back in Britain, winter comes, and Granny's cough gets worse every day. Emery asks where the blue powder comes from and she starts to say it is better he does not know, and then chokes. Lanzo tells him later, in a whisper, the powder comes from the forbidden forest a day's walk west, also called the Evernight Forest, where the trees grow so thick the sun never reaches the ground and nobody who goes in comes out. Emery, who has watched a red dragon eat a boy, asks what kind of monster lives there. Lanzo says nobody who has seen it survives. Emery points out that if nobody survives, somebody has been talking. Then Lanzo changes the subject and asks him to help take the year's tribute to the capital. Lion Arch is the last place Emery wants to go, so he wraps his face and goes anyway, for two reasons: the Marauder Chief Podrig and the largest collection of plants on the island. At the royal warehouse, he watches the tribute system work. The steward weighs 2 full carts of Mistshire's entire year and pays out 300 coins for what should be 500, deducting 100 of it as tribute on the orders of Lord Phantomar. When old Jacob objects, the steward tells him to take it up with the king's right hand. Then Jacob quietly hands over a second, smaller bag under the table, because otherwise next year will be worse. They cannot open a stall, the fees are impossible. They cannot sell in the market, that is illegal. They cannot sell outside the walls, that is the dungeon. Jacob hands Emery and Lanzo 5 coins each and goes to get drunk. Emery stares at the 5 coins. A year ago he walked around with dozens in his pocket and never once wondered whose season of labor they were. 5 coins does not buy a sword. The cheapest decent blade in the smithy is 30, and the 5-coin rack is all chipped and bent. So Emery walks 3 streets over to the Lion Arch Apothecary, the biggest shop in the city, and puts 3 stamina potions and 2 healing pastes on the counter of a fat old alchemist who sniffs them, tastes them, names both effects instantly, and offers 5 coins for the lot on the grounds that they are common and he does not know who made them. Emery does not haggle. He asks why, listens to the whole answer, adds 5 more of each until the offer is 10 coins, and then refuses the money. He asks instead for 1 hour among the shop's herbs. Lanzo thinks his friend has lost his mind. Emery walks out of that back room with dozens of plants registered that the galaxy has never catalogued, and a fistful of samples to take apart later. Then he goes back and puts a bottle of his cleansing potion on the counter and offers it for free. The alchemist, who has just spent an hour listening to this boy think, refuses to take anything for nothing and asks what he actually wants. What he wants is this: sell the paste and the potions, watch how they perform, remember who made them, and buy from him properly the next time he walks in. The old man laughs and takes the deal, then asks his name. Emery, who cannot afford to be Emery in this city, says he can be called Merlin. That night he goes looking for Podrig. Lanzo refuses to be sent back to the inn, says he already thinks of Emery as a brother, and comes along. They ask the same question in 5 taverns and get nothing, except that by the 4th one Emery has noticed the cloaked men following them. He steers Lanzo into an alley, and when the swords come out, Emery is simply gone. Over a wall and onto a roof with a body that no longer works like a 15-year-old's. He lets them take Lanzo. He apologizes for it in his own head, and he follows them to their safe house anyway, because this is the only trail he has. Inside, a small thin man with a knife is asking Lanzo who sent him. Lanzo, on the floor, invents a story about a village boy who wants to join the great chief's cause, and never once says Emery's name. So the thin man puts the knife through his thigh and twists it, and asks again and does it to the other thigh. Emery smears strength paste on his arms and legs, throws a stone into the trees to split the guard off, drops one man silently and takes his sword, and lets the body be found on purpose so the biggest of them gets sent outside too. Then he comes through the window. He kills one on the way in, cuts Lanzo free, and discovers that the small man is faster than he looks and that the giant, Gondo, knocks him 3 steps backward with a single blow. Still, Emery gets a name out of the man's own mouth in the middle of the fight. The Crimson Fong, and Podrig is real. Then the marauder who left earlier comes back with more of them, and Emery is surrounded with a crippled friend behind him. He knocks one out cold by throwing a heavy purse of coins at his head, tips a table over Lanzo as a shield, and gets ready to lose. The door opens instead, and a man in white armor and a red robe walks in over a dying marauder. The Crimson Fong's leader recognizes him and loses all the color in his face. Yvain, the Knight of the Lion. 2 marauders charge him and he moves through them like a blur, precise thrusts between chest and shoulder, both alive and both finished, in about a second and a half. Then a full-grown lion comes through the door behind him, catches Gondo's great sword in its teeth, and takes him apart. Emery stands there and understands exactly how far he still has to go. This is the swordsman his father was compared to. He also understands he cannot be seen here, because Yvain would know his face, and a living Ambrose heir is worth killing. So he goes out the window while the surrender is being called. And then he hears a voice he has not heard in months and stops in the trees. Gwen is out there in red battle armor with a lion on the shoulder. She has been running this operation herself, because a settlement delegation begged her father for protection against exactly these men and got a shrug and a promise to inform the garrison. She has the Crimson Fang's leader on the ground, and she is asking him whether they were behind the attack on the Ambrose estate, and whether there was a boy named Emery, and whether they killed him. Emery's hand comes up on its own. Then the memory arrives, we can't be friends anymore, and it stops him where he stands. He steps back onto a dead branch. A night turns. He runs and spends the whole run trying to invent a reason why she would be asking, and cannot make any of them fit. In the morning Lanzo comes back to the inn on the princess's knight's escort, with a bag of coins for his trouble, bandaged from the waist down and holding no grudge at all. He spends the coins on gifts for the villagers, including a hand-knitted coat for Granny, and makes them a day late leaving. They ride into Misthire after dark under a blood moon, and there is nobody at the gate. Jacob goes hut to hut shouting names. Everything valuable is untouched. There are no horse tracks, no signs of a fight. 30 people are simply gone. They find them behind Granny's hut, in a pit, being buried one at a time by a man named Obed who is not really there anymore. The whole settlement, young and old, dried out and aged down to bone and white eyes. Granny comes out of the hut and tells them what happened. A cough went through the village hours after the cart left, and she brewed against it all night and it took them anyway. Lanzo, standing beside Emery, goes gray, because he has heard this before. It is what emptied his own family's estate, the illness that left only him. Granny shakes her head and puts her face in her hands, and Emery works out that this has happened more than once across the 2 years Lanzo has been on the road with her. Then she fetches 3 bottles of green potion and tells them to drink it as a preventative. Lanzo and Jacob drink immediately. Emery lifts his bottle, and something at the back of his skull will not shut up, so he runs analyze on it. Paralysis poison. Shocks the nervous system. Renders the drinker unable to move. He smashes his own bottle and knocks the others out of their hands, and he is far too late. Lanzo gets as far as what and you before he hits the floor. Jacob and Obed go down after him. And Granny changes. Her face folds in on itself, her eyes push forward in their sockets. Her teeth come in like fangs, and the warm old woman who saved Emery's life is a cackling hig telling him he is more talented than she is, which is a shame. She raises a hand and the roots come in through the walls, and Emery recognizes the spell, because it is entangle. Then black smoke rises off her other palm and twists itself into a rope, and his palm reads it as a rank 3 darkness spell. She is running both at once. She has never been to the Magus Academy, no restriction is slowing her, and she never once says the name. Whatever she is, she learned this here, in Britain. His iron sword goes dull hacking roots, then bends, then gets torn out of his hands. He hesitates once, looking at Lanzo lying with his eyes open, and a root takes his ankle. The smoke rope wraps him. The paralysis bottle goes down his throat. He wakes on the alchemy table he used to work at, unable to move anything but his eyes. Granny leans over him, takes his chin, and looks into his eyes until she finds the green in them. So that is what he is, she says. Fate. Then she gets to work. She smears Jacob with blood, draws a circle and a 6-pointed star on his chest, chants something in no language Emery knows, and drives a jet-black dagger into the middle of it. Jacob wakes up to die. His body convulses and a screaming white stream pours out of his mouth, his nose, his ears and his eyes, and Granny swallows it. What is left on the table is one more dried husk, and her hair has gone a little darker. She tells Emery what she is. Plague. A curse on all living things. Then she puts Lanzo on the table and cuts his shirt open, and Emery begs, and she does not hear him, and then she stops the knife halfway because she notices Lanzo's eyes are open. Lanzo is not brave about it. He says he is afraid to die and more afraid to know. He asks her once whether it was her. She says yes, you are correct. And Lanzo, who has spent 2 years fetching her herbs, erupts. He treated her like his mother, and she tells him cheerfully that she never was, and that he should be happy he gets to see his family again, and puts the dagger through his chest. The last thing Lanzo does is look at Emery. When it is over, Granny catches her reflection in the cauldron and laughs, and then touches her own face and finds tears on it. She has no idea where they came from. She wipes them off and turns to Emery, because he is next. She tears his shirt open over the scar an orc left him, and paints the blood on and lifts the dagger. And Emery, who has spent this entire night unable to move, finds out what hate does to a bloodline. Fur, claws, fangs, and black engravings crawling out of the scar on his chest and up across his cheeks. He tears free of the poison, ricochets off the ceiling, and hits her hard enough to blow the roof off the hut. She stands up out of the wreckage unhurt with skin the color and hardness of oak. What follows is a chase through a winter forest under a red moon, and it is not a fight he is winning. She turns to smoke every time he closes. She traps him twice and he rips his way out twice. She taunts him constantly and his own transformation is feeding on that, so he makes himself slow down and think, and works out that her shadow ropes are anchored to her, which means every time one comes out from behind a tree, she is behind that tree. So he stops chasing and starts flattening trees. A dozen trunks later, he is above her, dropping. She gets one spell off. A crescent of black light, rank 3 called Enfeeble Blade. His right arm is still hanging in the air when he lands. She has the moon dagger in his chest before he can register it, sitting on top of him, and this time Emery gets to feel from the inside what she did to Lanzo, his own life coming out of him in a white stream. It is a rich one. She screams with delight and asks what he actually is, and her hair thickens and her skin tightens and 200 years fall off her, and she stands up a woman in her 30s promising herself she is finally going to return the favor to somebody she calls that bitch. Emery does the only thing left. He grabs her hand and shoves the dagger deeper into his own chest, and while she is staring at that, he sits up and bites through her neck. She tears loose. He gets an arm around her and bites again and takes a piece of her with him. She turns to shadow and is gone. Emery lies in the snow with one arm, bleeding out, and the voice in his head tells him he is hopeless, that she is a rank 6 at least, that she certainly has a healing spell, and that she will be back before he is dead. Emery laughs and says at least he won. The voice says this is definitely not winning. Emery says she is the one who ran. He asks who he has been talking to, as a joke, in what he assumes are his last seconds. And the voice announces itself as Kilgraga, the guardian of cows, whose greatness is still feared across the galaxy. Emery is still laughing at his own dying imagination when the woman's footsteps come crunching back through the trees, and the sky above him turns into a stone ceiling. He is in a cave in agony, which means he is alive. At the end of the tunnel there is black fire, and a dragon 10 times the size of a warhorse with a chain on its back leg. It spits something invisible at him that closes the hole in his chest and takes the pain out of his shoulder, then congratulates him on having been blessed by the awesome, mighty, great, and powerful Kilgraga. Cannot grow his arm back. It does not want to discuss the chain. The chamber has 2 other things in it. A door so large that an invisible pressure stops Emery from getting near it, which the dragon says he will not open until his understanding of the elements is far beyond what it is. And a window, through which Emery can watch the woman who murdered his friends walking in circles in the forest, turning over the trees he knocked down, looking for a body she is never going to find. This place, Kilgraga says, is a space made by cows, the ruler of darkness. Emery cannot leave it because he is too weak to leave it. The Academy's recall spell will not reach through the barrier either. As far as the mark on his palm is concerned, he is dead. He asks what it will take. The dragon says, become a magus. About 5 to 10 years. Emery goes looking for a way to shorten that, tries flattering an obviously vain dragon into handing over a treasure or a spell, and gets told there is no treasure, no spell, and to go away. And then, because it has been enjoying itself, Kilgraga tells him to actually look at where he is standing. The whole chamber is saturated with the pure energy of cows, the same principle as the Academy's origin stones, except those each feed one element and this feeds all of them. 10 years becomes 2 or 3. The storeroom at the far end of the tunnel has water and sacks of tasteless triangular bread, which Analyze identifies as lembas, elf food. Emery works out what that means. Something happened after he blacked out in that swamp, and this space was never meant for him. He gets to work. Earth to the middle stage in 4 days, which had taken him weeks with plant. Water after it. Stone skin, which he tests by throwing himself at a wall. Whip splash, which needs water nearby to work at all, so he shelves it. Rank 3 in 3 weeks. Rank 4 a month later. And Kilgraga tells him he is going backwards, that his face looks proud when it should be ashamed, and that at this rate the dragon will need a 5-year nap before Emery becomes a magus. So Emery finally snaps and calls him what he is. A big lazy phony chained in a cave, all talk, who promised guidance and has delivered nothing but insults. The dragon rises, spreads its wings, and lifts him up into the air on a cushion of cow's energy until the ground is out of sight and the density of the stuff is cutting at him like small blades. Then it looks him in the eye and says it wonders whether he is brave or stupid, and that it does not break promises. What Emery sees next is his own spirit core. A small sphere holding 4 separate lights. 2 dominant, green and yellow, 1 smaller blue, and 1 so tiny it is barely a dot. The 4 are not cooperating. They are strangling each other. Every time he cultivates one, that element swells and squeezes the others, which is why his progress crawls and why darkness, the smallest, the one the other three shove aside every single time, has never grown at all. Humans, the dragon says, have been doing this wrong since before they had civilization, and dragons mastered the elements while humanity was still learning to build. The instruction is simple, and it is the opposite of everything Minerva taught the class on day 1. Do not feed the three. Give everything to darkness because darkness rules over space. Make it the core and make the other three serve it. Emery asks the obvious question. The Academy forbids cultivating 2 elements at once because your body explodes. The dragon says the technique only works in the early stages before a core solidifies, which is exactly why every magus who tried it failed. It needs a place dense with spirit energy, which is where he happens to be standing, and it needs a person who can survive being torn apart. Humans have weak minds. They stopped trying and the method fell out of history. Emery thinks it over. He decides the dragon is certainly planning to use him for something, and that he intends to use the dragon right back. Then he sits down and does it. He reaches for the little dark blob, lets the wall down, and lets all 3 of the others crash into it at once, because Kilgraga tells him doing it one at a time makes the later merges close to impossible. The remaining elements will read it as extermination and fight to the death. Green comes first, a world of trees and roots, then yellow, sand and stone, then blue, water arriving from every direction. Everything converges and it feels like 1,000 blades opening him at the same time. His body shakes and blood runs out of his mouth and he does not make a sound. The black light dims and shrinks and goes out entirely, and his core turns clear dark, and then the other 3 start thrashing to get out of it and cracks spread across the sphere. He watches, from everywhere at once. The trees wither, the water go foul, the stones split. Kilgraga shouts that this is the crucial part and then vanishes, and the core cracks and reaches the edge of shattering. The faceless figure from his death dream reappears, twists into a mirror of Emery himself, and tells him he is not going to make it. Tells him to give up. Emery, who has nothing left to lose in either world, screams and grabs all 3 lights and drags them in. The core detonates, and what is left where it was is a solid gray-dark sphere with green, yellow and blue circling inside it, chasing each other, working together. He wakes up on his back, vomits blood, and is fine seconds later. Darkness is no longer listed among his affinities, because it is no longer an affinity. It is the core. All 3 remaining elements have jumped to their high stage at once. His spirit force is 55, and from now on the energy of cows flows in as one steady stream and feeds all of them equally, like a lord paying every one of his people the same. Rank 5 arrives at spirit force 60. Then the ranks stop coming and the dragon explains why. Rank 6 needs 100 in every element at its peak stage, and becoming a magus needs 1,000. At his current rate that is still 5 to 10 years. Emery briefly wonders whether he has been played, and gets told to stop worrying about the mountain and go take the next step. Small things have changed. Stone's skin now carries a dark shimmer in its cracks and holds against the moon dagger's edge where it used to fail. Whip Splash lands harder and its edges run black. The dagger itself reads as a Tier 3 artifact whose spell stays locked to its owner. Emery starts carving a wooden practice sword and learning to swing it left-handed, since his right arm is gone. Kilgraga sneers at him. What does a magus want with a sword? Emery says that in his own world only a fraction of a spell's power will work, so he needs something to keep himself alive, and that the day the dragon offers him something better, he will put the sword down. That is the reason he gives. The real one is that he wanted to be a knight since he was small enough to be told he never could. 8 months after he came home. 4 of them in this cave with a chained dragon and a window onto a forest. The mark on his palm lights up for the first time since he was declared dead. An invitation to the 2nd year at Magus Academy. 3 months. The recall activates in 30 days. There are 4 friends waiting there. An apothecary institute he has barely set foot in, spells worth the name, and somewhere in that world, perhaps, a way to get his arm back. He stands in front of the dragon and demands to be let out, and does not care how angry it makes him. Kilgraga sighs and says he really does not give up easily, and admits he has grown tired of the same view anyway. Recap 2. Greater Beyond / NPC Advancement System. ch 1 to 99 equals. Valyr is dying in open space, and the last thing he gets to watch is his own planet coming apart. He was on the front line for the final battle. His side had years of warning, plans, countermeasures, skills built for specific situations, and none of it mattered. The other side went through them like they were nothing. Now his body is drifting, the water in it is boiling off, and he has about a minute left. So he asks, out loud to whoever might be listening, "Give me a second shot. Let me start over and fix what I got wrong." Then the dark turns into light, and he wakes up on a pile of hay in the back of a wooden cart, under a blue sky, in a world that is very obviously not Earth. His first reaction is disappointment. He assumes the heavens gave him half of what he asked for. A new life, sure, but a medieval one where he can do nothing about anything. Then a chime goes off, and a screen opens in the air in front of him. He knows that chime. He spent years of his life listening to it. The thing that killed his world was a game called Greater Beyond, the first fully immersive virtual world good enough that eventually everyone on Earth was playing it. The company running it worked out that if you control the game, you control the people inside it, and they did exactly that. Valyr belonged to the faction that fought back and lost. Now he is inside that game, not as a player. The screen calls him a character, initializes something called the NPC advancement system, and confirms his name. Valyr Zyhart. He cries. Then he wipes his face, sits up, and starts working, because he knows something nobody else here knows. The closed beta opens in 60 days. About a week from now, the first couple dozen real players will log in. After that, the clock runs all the way to the battle he already lost once. 2 goals, and he sets them before the cart has even arrived. Build an organization strong enough to hold the line in the final battle, because last time his side had courage and no unifying voice. And pick the class that carries him to the end. The man driving the cart is called Trindal, a good-natured trader who spends the ride telling Valyr that kids hitch rides out of their villages all the time and mostly come home crying. When they part at the village gates, Trindal throws him a purse of 100 copper and tells him not to waste it on indulgences, and the two of them make a bet. Whoever surprises the other more the next time they meet wins. Then Valyr walks into Astarto village and goes straight for the guard barracks because he already knows what he wants and the guards are the shortest road to it. The class he took in his first life was blacksmith. Everyone treats production classes as second-rate, but Valyr knows what happens further in. This world runs at roughly Renaissance level, and the game's innovation tree hands out technology far beyond that. A blacksmith who climbs that tree can build a gap nobody else in this world can close. He intends to be the man who does it, and the reputation from that is how he recruits an army later. But blacksmithing has entry requirements, and a man with no strength and no name meets none of them. Hence the guards. The recruitment goes like this. Valyr finds the guard leader's office, knocks, and is told to come in by a voice that sounds like it belongs to a battle-scarred veteran. Instead there is a man in his late 20s behind the desk. Valyr says he wants to apply. The man says he is glad he asked. Valyr, who was braced for a combat trial, asks whether there is some kind of test. The man tells him. The test was whether he would volunteer. He volunteered. He passed. That is Damien Waters, and when Valyr pushes the point, Damien drops the joke and explains. The 5 strongest people in this village have reached the top of the first-class rank, and most of the village has not reached the first rank at all. A combat trial would be a formality. Then he lets a little of his own pressure out, and Valyr's body shivers on its own, and the question is answered. Then Damien drags him off by the arm for a tour, because apparently that is also part of the deal. The barracks runs on 2 currencies. Merit points buy you rank, guard, veteran, captain, leader. Contribution points buy you things. Better weapons, armor, items, skills. Night patrols pay 2 to 3 times what day patrols pay. And there are special skills in the shop, which Damien mentions in passing and Valyr immediately files away, because he knows exactly what those are worth. In the equipment room Valyr picks up and puts down every weapon on the rack, and none of them feel like anything. Then he lifts a wooden spear off a stand of what look like glorified poking sticks, and it clicks because the spear was his weapon last time too. Damien raises an eyebrow. Nobody in this village picks the spear, and hands him a strip of cloth to tie it across his back. On the training field, he notices one man who does not train like anybody else. Instead of drilling combos into a dummy, this one stares at it in silence, mutters to himself, shifts his grip, steps back, strikes exactly once, nods and starts the cycle again. Valyr writes him off as an oddball and forgets about him. He will regret that later, but not for a while. Then Valyr goes to a dummy of his own and starts doing something that looks insane. Thrust with the right hand, thrust with the left, thrust with the right over and over, hours of it until both arms are screaming. He is not training ambidexterity. He is farming a skill. There are 3 known ways to get skills in this world: buy the book, ascend to a higher class, or take one as a quest reward. There is a 4th that almost nobody discovers for years because it is the most tedious option available and it looks like nothing: pure repetitive movement. Do the same motion enough times and the system eventually admits you have learned something. The first notification tells him he has a hint of how to hold a spear better. He grins and keeps going. By the time his arms need his other hand to hold them up, the system gives him basic spear mastery, and it increases his damage by 1%, which is worth almost nothing and is also proof that he has a working method for getting everything else. Then he walks out of the village and kills 8 wolves and boars before sunset, and finds out that the experience system here is not like other games. Experience is a currency. You gain it by killing and questing, and then you decide where it goes, into your level or into any skill you own. That is why the world will eventually fill up with people who are low level and terrifying, and high level and useless. He spends 100 of it, hits level 2, and immediately feels the difference because 1 point in every stat has just roughly doubled everything about him. That night he does his first patrol. Leon, the loud one, splits the village into 4 sections and gives the newcomer the southeast, while the other 2 guards look at Valyr with visible pity. Leon eventually admits the southeast is the standard initiation, because that is where most of the trouble happens. Nothing happens. Valyr walks empty streets for hours, gets thanked by villagers heading home, sends drunks to bed, and eventually sits on a porch reading the shop menu out of boredom. Then a bush rustles behind him and he has the spear off his back before he finishes turning. It is Leon, crouched behind a barrel, snickering, and disappointed that he got caught. His section emptied out an hour ago and so did Valyr's, and Damien lets them come in early if the streets are clear, which is a thing nobody told the new guy. Leon reports Valyr's performance to Damien favorably anyway, on the grounds that a guard who stays alert when nothing is happening is the good kind. The next morning Valyr wakes up unable to move, discovers the shop sells painkillers for 10 points, and buys them with the fervor of a man being saved from drowning. Then he goes to see the blacksmith. The village smithy belongs to Tristan, a man who looks under 30 and has the hands of someone who has been hammering metal since he could hold a hammer. Valyr says he wants to learn blacksmithing. Tristan asks, not unkindly, why a guard would want to spend his evenings in front of a furnace on top of everything else, and then says no anyway, because Valyr does not have the strength for it. Valyr asks what happens if he does have the strength. Tristan asks how long that would take. 2 weeks, says Valyr. Tristan stops hammering. He does not believe it for a second. He also has been alone in this smithy for a long time and is bored, so he decides the bluff is worth calling, and turns it into a formal quest. For stats up to 7, which in practice means reaching level 7, and he generously hands over 20 days instead of 14 because he does not want the boy to get discouraged and quit. Valyr walks out doing arithmetic because he has a way to get there that Tristan has never heard of. The way is a thing called a reinforcement elixir. In his first life these caused a small scandal. A handful of rich players bought them with real money, each bottle giving a flat point to every stat, and with 10 of them a level 1 character had the numbers of a level 10 one. For a short and very unpleasant period those people ruled the beginner zones as tyrants. Then somebody worked out that the elixirs could simply be brewed, that the store version was the weakest grade anyway, and the tyranny collapsed overnight. That knowledge is currently about 8 weeks away from existing. Valyr has it now. Better still, the guard shop stocks every ingredient. Lizard dragon blood, mountain bull hoof, shadow serpent meat, scarlet tiger claw for the physical version, owl tongue, silver wolf eyes, rabbit essence for the mental one. 1 batch of each, enough for 5 attempts apiece, comes to 140 points, which is a week of night patrols and no risk at all. So he builds a routine and runs it. Mornings outside the walls killing 20 monsters and hauling 2 corpses back to sell. Hide to the tailor, meat to the inn. Afternoons in the training field. Nights on patrol. The only friction is his friends, who have worked out that he is looking for an alchemist and refuse to let it go. Leon points a spoon at him and demands to know what he wants brewed. Valyr says only that the village will lose its mind if word gets out. Jonas, whose imagination goes to a dark place immediately, asks whether it is poison. Valyr asks whether he would like it to be, then admits it is not, and finally caves and promises to tell them afterwards, which sets off cheering loud enough to annoy the entire cafeteria. A week in, he is level 5 with enough experience banked for 6, and it is time. The village clinic is run by one person. Vera Askell, hair pinned up with a stick of graphite, round spectacles, more scholar than healer to look at. She is the doctor, the alchemist, and the entire medical apparatus of Astarto village. And when Valyr asks whether there is an alchemist here, she laughs and tells him he is looking at one. Then he asks for somewhere private, and she throws a crude barrier of mana around them. And he says the words reinforcement elixir, and her eyes go wide. She refuses. Not out of pride, out of honesty. She is a novice. She does not know the recipe, and these materials are far too valuable to waste on her. He should go to a real alchemist in a town. Valyr keeps pushing, mostly on gut feeling, and eventually gets to the real question. Underneath the refusal, does she want to try? Yes. Obviously yes. So she calls her teacher. The way she does it is to dig an old gray orb out from under her bed and pour mana into it. And the voice that answers is dry, amused, and clearly delighted to hear from her only student. Mr. Askell talks Vera through the physical elixir step by step: water, mana, cut each ingredient into 5 even portions, add them one at a time, extract the essence rather than cooking it, then seal and let the essences meld. While that is happening, Mr. interrogates Valyr, and Valyr, who is being extremely careful, interrogates her back. When he gives his full name, she murmurs at once, Zyhart, and starts to say something and then very deliberately does not. She also tries to talk him into something. Reinforcement elixirs, she points out, could transform this village, and the two of them could corner the market and make a fortune. Valyr can hear a quest offer in the shape of that sentence and turns it down, because he is level 6 and starting a revolution before the players even arrive is the fastest way to get himself killed. Then the cauldron detonates, which turns out to be the sound of success. Vera goes 10 for 10 on attempts and lands 8 of them. The one physical failure happens when she asks to do a batch alone, gets overconfident off the back of 4 straight successes, and ruins the balance. The one mental failure happens because she is still rattled about the first, which earns her a scolding from the orb that makes Valyr quietly resolve to stay on Mishja's good side forever. He gives Vera a vial of each as thanks. She refuses. He insists. Mishja tells her to take it. Vera takes it with her head down and her ears red, and then refuses payment for the work as well, on the grounds that the experience was worth more, and offers instead to brew more for him next time. Then Valyr walks into a side alley, drinks 3 of each, and his stats climb past what the quest asked for. Later, when he checks, his affinity with Vera has jumped by 100 points in one go, the kind of jump that normally takes a dedicated questline. He has no idea why. He files it under good omen and keeps walking. Tristan is opening the smithy when Valyr turns up, having finished a 20-day quest in 7. And the first thing out of his mouth is a stunned attempt at asking how. Then he triples down and doubles the reward because in his words great effort deserves great reward, and unlocks the thing Valyr actually came for. The technology tree. It has 3 branches: combat, production, and innovation. A blacksmith lives in the last 2, and the trick, which Tristan delivers with the enormous pleasure of a man revealing a secret, is that you cannot climb the production branch at all unless you climb innovation first. Valyr, who has done this before and knows every node by heart, performs surprise on cue, spends his points, and comes out the other side holding basic forging, equipment creation, modification, and enhancement. Then Tristan hands him a second quest that requires him to reach level 10, and Valyr nearly loses his temper, because he has just finished one that required exactly the same kind of grind. Tristan's answer is patient and completely reasonable. 7 in a stat is the minimum for touching a hammer. 10 is the number where you can perform every basic forging motion without your body compensating for what it lacks. And compensating is how blacksmiths pick up habits that take years to unlearn. He would have given this quest either way. Then he adds the part that shuts Valyr up. Valyr is the one who claimed he could do it in 2 weeks. Tristan never pressured him. He would have been perfectly happy waiting. So the frantic weak Valyr just put himself through was entirely Valyr's own doing. He also, in passing, mentions that he holds a 2nd rank class, which makes him the strongest person in the village by a clear margin and which precisely nobody here knows, because he ascended 2 weeks ago and has not told anyone. Any village blacksmith who owns his own smithy usually has one. 1st rank blacksmiths are greenhorns. That evening Damien catches Valyr in the hallway looking apologetic, and asks a favor. A monster tide is coming. In about a week. Monster tides are exactly what the name says. A wave of monsters that rolls across the land and removes settlements from the map. Fighting them is the actual reason the village guards exist. Damien has been recruiting everyone with a 1st rank class and every able body who volunteers, and he feels bad asking a man who has been here a week and a half. Valyr accepts, and the quest attached to it pays per kill up to 1,000 kills, which is a number that makes his eyes go slightly unfocused. Damien then gives him 500 contribution points as a gift, and explains why with no flattery at all. Fewer than half the guards volunteered. The ones who did grew up here and are defending their own home. Valyr did not grow up here, joined for reasons of his own, and volunteered anyway. He also hands over a map of the region for free, which quietly unlocks the world map. Valyr spends nearly all of it on a second full batch of elixir ingredients, then goes looking for somewhere better to level. He finds it. Macaroni Forest, 10 kilometers out, monsters between level 8 and 15, with a small village called Klaus sitting close enough to sleep in. Vera runs the whole 10-attempt process again and lands 8 out of 10. She also asks quietly whether the village will be safe, and whether she will be able to treat everyone, and Valyr talks her out of the spiral by pointing out that the weakest people out there will be trained guards. Then he goes and drinks the lot. 20 vials, physical and mental together, burning and freezing at the same time. When it stops, the system informs him that his body has reached the first stage of tempering, and hands him a rare grade passive called Basic Reinforced Body and Soul, which adds 5 points to every stat on top of everything the elixirs already gave. His stats go from single digits to 21 across the board. At level 6, in a village where the strongest people alive are first rank. He tests it by running for the gates, and the villagers he passes feel a gust of wind. The few fast enough to see anything watch a silhouette clear the wall line and assume a first-rank class holder just went by. Klaus village turns out to be waiting to die. The innkeeper, Adrian, sells Valyr's corpses, cooks him a serious dinner, and then, after a few too many honest sentences, tells him the truth. Surviving even a small tide takes about 10 people at peak first rank, and Klaus has 3, and one of them left when the news got close. He apologizes for getting heated. He says he supposes he just wanted somebody to remember he existed. Valyr cannot save this village. He knows it. Without a first-rank class he has stats and nothing else, no real skills, and his presence would only delay the ending. What he does instead is stop Adrian on his way out and tell him not to give in to that thinking, because sometimes the world answers in ways you would not expect. He means it. He is standing there because the world did exactly that for him. Then Adrian refuses to charge him for the room, and Valyr gives back all 10 silver he was paid for the carcasses and tells him to consider it a gift from a stranger. He lies awake that night in a better bed than his own, and the thought that keeps him up is not the tide. It is that he needs to get stronger. In the forest the next morning he learns what his new numbers actually mean. He picks a level 11 bear, and puts a wooden spear through its abdomen hard enough to send it into a tree, and takes an eye, and finishes it by pinning it in mid-pounce and kicking it down onto its own impalement. Then he checks the reward and finds that killing 5 levels above yourself doubles the experience, and that monsters past level 10 pay out on an entirely different scale to the tutorial ones. A pack of 5 wolves finds him because of the blood on his spear. He kills all 5 and learns the damage system properly in the process. A critical doubles, a hit to something vital triples, a hit to the single most vital part, the brain multiplies by 5, and there is a 4th tier above that which needs a critical to land on top of a brutal hit and is essentially a lottery. The next day he goes hunting for level 14s and finds that every monster at that level in this forest is an elite, with a quarter more stats than normal, and one is worse than that. He turns around and walks away from a silver-striped bear with all the dignity he can manage, settles for level 13s, and kills 50 of them. By sunset he has close to 50,000 experience banked, and he spends the lot, and the system tells him he has reached level 10 and offers to let him ascend. He declines. He is not taking a first-rank class until he has collected every skill his chosen variant requires. Then he runs home in the dark, and the guard he passes on night patrol takes several steps back from him without meaning to. Damien's mouth opens when Valyr says he is still level 10. Tristan flat out does not believe him and uses analysis on him at the smithy door to check, and then stands there slack-jawed because it is true, a level 10 with the pressure of a peak first-rank class holder, which should not be a thing that exists. Tristan triples the rewards again, hands over the analysis skill, and Valyr immediately dumps 20,000 experience into it to push it to level 7, because being able to read a room is worth more than being able to hit it. The first thing he reads is his own spear, and the description tells him something he had half noticed and dismissed. A faint connection has formed between him and this cheap training weapon, and the system recommends he keep using it. Then Tristan sets him his second real task: forge a piece of equipment. Valyr protests that he has never held a hammer in this life, which is technically true. Tristan says he had planned a hammering practice quest first and cut it, because Valyr has cleared everything else in a fraction of the time given. No deadline on this one. Take a month if you want. So Valyr watches Tristan work. The man is making a broadsword for Damien, and it is the first weapon of its kind he has made for a peak rank fighter. The blade Damien carries now was forged for a beginner and is the only thing holding him back. Tristan hammers with no wasted movement at all, and explains the essence of the craft in about 2 sentences. Heat it until it is soft, hammer it toward the shape you want, and when it cools, do it again. Valyr also asks why a blacksmith is fighting in a monster tide at all, when he could be making weapons instead. Tristan tells him that a smith who makes weapons and never uses one produces weapons with nothing in them, and that in his opinion those are the worst kind of blacksmiths. Then, to make the point, he lets out an aura that is not remotely a craftsman's, and cheerfully suggests Valyr use analysis on him sometime to find out what his combat subclass is. Then Valyr sits down at the anvil with a lump of copper and a blueprint for a copper dagger, and immediately has a problem. The problem is that he is very good at this. The first swing opens a door in his head and 30 years of another life come through it. He finds a rhythm. Every strike lands with purpose. Across the smithy, Tristan looks up expecting to see a beginner mangling a piece of copper, and instead sees a man using a hammer like a part of his own arm, and starts wondering whether he has stumbled onto a natural. Then Tristan's face darkens because there is a second possibility, and it is that this man already knows how to forge and is hiding it. Valyr catches the look and understands the danger immediately. Successfully forging something on a first attempt is not impressive, it is evidence. So he starts getting worse on purpose. His rhythm slows, his control goes, and when the dagger is 2 or 3 hits from being finished, he silently apologizes to the metal and hammers dents into it at full strength. He hands Tristan a deformed lump and says he thinks it is done. Tristan is quiet for a long moment, then gives an honest assessment that is more painful than criticism. The opening was superb. Stable rhythm, purpose behind every strike, everything a smith should aim for. Then it fell apart, and if he had held that form all the way through, Tristan would be holding a finished dagger right now. And then he gives him the advice that Valyr has heard before in another life, and needed hundreds of ruined attempts to actually learn. Every blacksmith second-guesses himself. What separates the real ones is that they notice the doubt and do not act on it. They follow the thing through to the end. Valyr wants to go again immediately. Tristan refuses. The tide is days away and there will be no smithy to come back to if they lose. So Valyr trudges toward the door looking like a kicked dog, and Tristan cracks after about 4 steps and offers him 1 attempt a day until the tide, and Valyr's whole face resets to delight in an instant. Tristan watches him leave and gets the distinct feeling that he has just been played. The tide arrives with a siren before dawn, and Valyr's first instinct on hearing it is that the sun is not up yet so he can sleep a little longer. Then the red emergency screens fill his vision and he is out of bed. At the gates he finds Damien in full armor for the first time, and gets told to eat something fast, and the ground starts rumbling in the middle of that sentence. Damien curses, tells him where the food is, and adds one thing. Most of the people here have ranged classes and will be going up onto the walls. For the 2 of them, the battlefield is outside. Tristan is at the field kitchen, having not slept at all, and pushes an iron chestplate across the table at him. It is nothing special. It will help, and Valyr had better give it back afterwards. Then Damien splits them up. Tristan goes to the center with him, where the tide will hit hardest. Valyr goes east as deputy to the captain holding that section. The captain is a woman with silver-gray hair in a ponytail who arrives by walking between Valyr and Leon and lowering the temperature of the entire conversation. Leon takes a step back. Several people take a step back. Analysis gives Valyr the numbers, and the numbers are educational. Mist Variel, level 18, class Galeblade, and an agility stat of 61, more than double his own, on somebody who has not yet reached the top of her rank. When she asks whether he is the deputy Damien sent, and he introduces himself as a rank 0 civilian, the murmuring starts immediately. How does a nobody get that job? Mist looks at him. Valyr understands the look, and lets his aura off the leash for about 2 seconds. The east section goes very quiet. Her orders for the first wave are the opposite of everything Valyr knows. Everyone level 8 and under goes to the front. Everyone stronger holds behind the line and only moves if somebody up there is in trouble. He asks why, because in his old life the strong always took the front. That is where the experience is. Because, she says, this is how the village gets more strong people. Let the low levels take the weak monsters and grow. Later in the day the positions reverse. And keep watching for anyone struggling. Valyr revises his opinion of her on the spot. She reads as cold and is not. The first wave goes fine. Level 5 and 6 monsters, a lot of frightened teenagers getting their first kills, and the veterans behind the line making small talk. Then somebody shouts that a rogue monster is coming for the east section, and Valyr's analysis says level 11, which is beyond everyone at that line, and he shouts at them to fall back and reaches for his spear. A dark gray streak goes past him. He is the only person in the section fast enough to even follow it, and he loses it twice. By the time it stops, the monster's head is already coming off. Over in the center, Tristan watches that happen from a distance and demands to know who the newcomer is. Damien tells him there is no newcomer, and that he already knows her, and enjoys drawing it out until Tristan is nearly shouting, "Mist! That is Mist!" And Tristan remembers a little girl who came to his smithy years ago with Damien, wanting a specific blade, thin, aerodynamic, closer to a sword than a rapier. He asked her why any old sword would not do, and she told him, with total seriousness, that she wanted to become the fastest sword user there is. He asks Damien's permission to forge her a new one after this is over. Back at the East Line, Mist returns to cheering and does not look satisfied. Valyr says as much. She admits it. She does not feel fast enough. She wants to move so fast that nobody can track her. He asks whether she has agility skills. She has bought every single one in the shop, passive and active, and the actives drain her mana faster than she can use them. So Valyr runs analysis over her gear and finds the hole. Her equipment gives her nothing. Only her sword adds agility, and not even the maximum a first-rank weapon could. Everything else she wears is defense and cloth. Later he finds out why she never noticed. She has monster analysis which reads monsters. She has never been able to read her own equipment in her life. Then the third wave comes early, and Damien's voice goes down the entire line ordering every captain and deputy to the front. And when the line hesitates he adds that hesitation is how people die who did not have to. Valyr goes out with them, and this is where he stops pretending. Mid-fight, while his body handles 3 monsters on muscle memory, he opens the technology tree and spends 30 leftover points on the combat branch, spear knowledge, spear technique, spear understanding, spear essence, his passive upgrades, and pierce turns into strong pierce. The next monster's head comes off its shoulders as a fine mist. For a second every monster around him stops moving. From the center, Damien and Tristan watch a portion of the battlefield turn deep red and stay that way, and stand there slack-jawed as heads keep exploding, and have the same conversation twice. Are you sure he has not ascended? Damien is sure. He checked. The man is level 10 with every stat above 20. Tristan wants to know where the extra stats came from. Damien guesses treasure, and admits he does not know. Mist, taking a breather because her class kills faster than anyone else's, looks left and asks out loud where all the blood is coming from, and gets her answer in the form of another exploding skull. She concludes that Valyr must have dumped everything into strength, which balances her speed, which is presumably why Damien paired them. That is nowhere close to the truth. What Valyr actually notices, sitting on a boulder afterwards, is a different notification entirely. The wooden spear he has been killing everything with has started to wake up. Traces of a soul are gathering inside it, fed by the blood, and it is asking him for help to finish the job. A weapon bond. Level 1. He has been carrying a level 1 training stick 9 levels past the point where he outgrew it, and it has just become the most valuable thing he owns. When Tristan and Mist corner him afterwards demanding to know how a rank 0 dealt that damage, he tells them without much fight. He spent points in the combat branch of the technology tree which upgraded a basic skill into a better one. Mist objects that the tree is only for first rank and above. Valyr agrees, unless a first rank holder unlocks it for you, which requires letting them have free run of your mind for a moment. Tristan scoffs that he only pushed a bit of mana into him and that Valyr exaggerates enormously. Then Valyr asks to borrow a forging hammer and a knife, because he intends to enhance his spear. In the middle of a battle, Mist tells him that is an odd decision. Valyr tells her it will not be the last one. He also refuses to let Tristan watch and gives the excuse that it is his first time and he does not want to be laughed at, and Tristan, who has been all but vibrating since he ran analysis on that spear, is so visibly crushed that Valyr has to promise him next time. The real reason is that Valyr has enhanced hundreds of weapons and cannot afford to be seen doing it well. While he is away carving imperfections out of a stick, Mist asks Tristan why he is behaving like this around a newcomer, and Tristan tells her that special is not a strong enough word for weapon bonds. At the low levels they add a percentage. At the high levels they turn a worthless weapon into one that gets written about. In his whole career he has seen exactly 3. One when he was an apprentice, one on Damien's sword, and one on Valyr's spear. Mist asks whether she could get one. Tristan points at the battlefield and tells her she is standing in the right place for it. Then the 4th wave comes, and the mood behind the line changes completely. Valyr asks why everyone has gone quiet, and Mist tells him plainly, because he has never done this before. The 4th wave is where the village's forces stretch far enough that monsters get through and hit the walls. Everyone strong enough to stop them is already committed. They could throw the defensive line at it, and they would lose people to save masonry. Walls are easier to replace than people. That is not surrender, she adds, unsheathing her blade. They are still going to kill everything they can reach. Valyr looks at his upgraded spear and wonders whether one man makes any difference to a thing this size. Then he notices the people behind him watching him, and Mist and Damien and Tristan, with the look of people who have already decided to trust them, and it feels like a hand in the middle of his back pushing him forward. Halfway through that wave, two figures come out of the village and go through the monsters like the monsters are scenery, and Valyr uses analysis on both and stops breathing for a second. Damien is level 25, class sword dancer, subclass guard leader, with 3 stats sitting near 100 at first rank, which should be impossible without something like reinforcement elixirs. Tristan is level 26, second rank experienced blacksmith, subclass battle junkie, dexterity 110. Battle junkie. In Valor's old life that subclass had another name, and the name was Berserker. Then something the size of a building starts walking toward them. It is a spider 40 or 50 meters tall, with orifices lining its underside, and analysis returns a level of 25 and a classification of rare elite, the kind of thing that lives in dungeons not on open ground. A lesser Tide Mother. Tristan explains the actual problem while punching monsters off their feet. This is not the last wave, and if they do not clear the current one fast enough, there will be several more waves before the last one, and they are not equipped for that. So they go faster. Tristan burns battle mania and turns himself into a rolling crimson disaster that gets stronger with every kill. Damien starts a flowing sword form and shouts down the line that this next stretch decides whether the village sees tomorrow. And the 4th wave dies while the Tide Mother is still a quarter of the way across the field. Then Damien gathers everyone who fought and offers them a way out. They have done their part. Anyone who wants to go back and reinforce the walls is free to go, with no hard feelings. Nobody goes. Not even Valyr, which is the one Damien expected to. He picks a strike team of 6. Tristan and a greatsword fighter named Rampart as tanks, Lithia on magic, Malek healing himself and Mist dealing damage. Valyr raises his hand and asks to be included, and Damien says no, the level gap is too wide, and against a gap that wide even his damage stops matching. Valyr takes it, and privately resolves that the moment this is over he is ascending. Everyone else becomes the quick response team, whose job is to kill everything the Tide Mother spawns out of those orifices. The fight goes badly in a specific way. The 6 cripple 2 of its legs and get its health to half, and then it reaches down into itself and comes back up berserk, its legs now lethal to be touched by. Damien pulls everyone to the front. Lithia offers the only big attack anyone has, a massive fireball, and admits she already used it once and it did a couple of hundred damage. Nobody says anything, which is answer enough. Over on the other side of the fight, the Tide Mother has spawned something much bigger than the rest, and the quick response team is standing there looking at it and nobody is moving. Level 18. Elite. 750 health. 8 levels above Valyr. He sighs and goes first. His opening thrust takes an eye. The counter is faster than he can react to, opens the chest plate Tristan lent him, opens his chest under it, and throws him across the ground coughing blood. He gets up. He charges again, cuts sharply mid-run instead of dodging, and puts the spear through its neck. He gets thrown again, and while he is on the ground with blood running down his front, he tells them the only useful thing anyone has said all day. It might be difficult. It is not impossible. That does it. The team goes in, finds out that their own hits are doing single digits, and immediately works out the correct answer. Surround it, occupy it, and give the man with the spear all the room he wants. Valyr thanks them, lines up on its skull, and thrusts. There is a crack and a pause long enough for everyone to feel disappointed, and then the head comes apart, and a number appears in a black so dark it does not look like a color. 600. A fatal hit, the 1 in 1,000 tier that even endgame players never learn to farm. The quick response team throws him into the air. He is still staring at the number. He also picks up a title for killing something 8 levels above him. The 6 see all of it from across the field. They see him trade his own health for hits, they hear what he said, they watch a group of ordinary villagers decide to become his cover, and they watch him kill the thing in 3 hits. And something in them catches. Tristan lights up a second, worse skill. One that visibly drains the color out of his face while it burns, and answers Damien's alarmed look with the only justification he needs. They cannot let themselves be outbraved by a level 10 brat. Then he leaps into the Tide Mother's underside, hammers its open orifices with a flurry of energy fists, dodges the retaliation, and kicks its last working leg out at the joint. The Tide Mother goes over on its side. Tristan looks back at 5 people standing there with their mouths open and asks them what exactly they are waiting for. Damien, swearing at him for not doing that earlier, opens the underside. Rampart spirals through its abdomen. Lithia lands her fireball on the top of it. Miss takes it down to a sliver, and Tristan uses the corpse as a springboard, jumps, and comes down through its shell hard enough to vanish inside it. There is a bad silence while 5 people stare at a hole. Then he climbs out covered head to foot in blood, and Damien shouts loud enough for the walls to hear it. The tide is over. The 6 are lying flat on blood-soaked ground grinning at the sky when Valyr reaches them, and Damien admits that in all the tides he has fought, this is the first one that ever went berserk. Tristan will not come back with them. He has a corpse the size of a building to harvest and nobody else is going to do it, and he wants somebody to send him a couple of boxes of empty glass vials. The walls beside the gates are broken in several places. No houses were lost, which is closer than Valyr is comfortable with. The village cheers them through the gates anyway. Inside, Vera is working on the wounded, and takes one look at the gash across his chest plate and stops being cheerful. When he takes the plate off, both of them get a proper look at the wound underneath, and both of them do the same arithmetic. One more hit and this conversation would not be happening. She hands him a healing potion, a novice grade, downgraded from the real recipe so people at her level can make it, and made so carefully that it sits at the absolute ceiling of what that grade can be, and the wound closes most of the way while he stands there. Then he asks whether he can help with anything, and she goes quiet for long enough that he knows the answer is going to be bad. Could he count the dead? Outside the gates, the mood is the exact opposite of the celebration behind him. People are gathered in small knots around bodies, some crying, some staring at the ground trying not to. Valyr goes to each group, gives his condolences, and quietly counts. Then he speeds up and finds out that the groups are the minority. Most of the bodies out here have nobody standing over them at all. So he goes to each one alone, and where the eyes are open he closes them and moves on to the next. 17. He walks out to the battlefield to check for anyone missed, and finds one more, and pays his respects to it by himself. On the way, Damien catches up carrying the box of vials, and explains what they are for. Tide Mother blood does interesting things when it goes into forging or into a concoction. They only started collecting it recently. As for how anyone discovered that, Damien says it came from a mixture of extreme curiosity and extreme boredom, and Valyr decides not to ask further. He does ask for his quest rewards on the spot, which Damien finds a slightly odd thing to want in the middle of a graveyard, and hands over anyway. 289 kills. 14,000 experience, the same again in contribution points. More than he has ever had, and enough merit to jump him 2 ranks in one go to guard captain. His reputation in Astarto village hits the maximum the village can hold, and the overflow starts converting into reputation on the planet itself, which is the currency that eventually makes kingdoms move out of your way. He is currently a no-name on that scale. He has started climbing it, which is the part that matters. When he gets back to the village after dark, Vera is waiting at the gate. He gives her the number. She looks at the ground. He changes the subject and she lets him and then produces a second potion because there is one patient left she has not finished treating and it is him. She apologizes that she cannot do anything about the scar. Valyr tells her it is fine. Hardly anyone will see it, and that it is a useful reminder that he is nowhere near strong enough to protect this village properly. Vera laughs at him, because he has clearly not heard what the village has been saying about him all afternoon, and drags him to the inn. The moment he steps through the door, somebody shouts that the tidebreaker has arrived, and the entire room detonates. Valyr asks what a tidebreaker is. Vera tells him that it is not a what, it is a who, and that the who is him. His notifications agree. His reputation has crystallized into a village legend, and he now carries the title Astarto's tidebreaker. Then he remembers the chest plate and asks Vera where it went, and she cheerfully pulls it out and holds up the ruined thing with an X-shaped hole punched through the middle for the hole in to see, and the noise gets worse. Leon, Jonas, and Louis are alive and at a table, and Leon wants to know what took him so long. Did the crowds hold him up? Valyr says no, he was helping Vera. Vera, without softening it at all, says she had him count the dead, and the table goes quiet. Valyr shrugs and tells them the truth, which is that somebody was always going to have to, and that the useful question is not what they could have done today but what they can do so that number is smaller next time. Meanwhile, a storyteller across the room is describing how the tidebreaker rallied the masses with his trusty spear, and Valyr eats an enormous amount of meat and tries not to listen. Then Damien and Tristan walk in carrying a box, and announce to the entire inn that the village's greatest contributor after the 6 who fought the Tide Mother is getting a share of the spoils, and does anyone object? Nobody objects. Several people tell Damien to hurry up. The first item is a pair of boots made out of the Tide Mother, dark gray fur at the ankle, blood-red carvings copying the pattern from its underside, and a foot section built from something like its exoskeleton. Uncommon grade, 5 levels above what Valyr can currently wear, with a skill built into them. And a line at the bottom saying they resonate with other equipment carrying the same energy. Set equipment 1 piece of 6. In Valor's old life, monster tie drops were hunted specifically because they were the easiest route to a set that existed. And he has just been handed the first piece by a room full of people who think they are thanking him. The second item is a vial of thick red liquid. And before Valyr can even identify it, the spear on his back starts trembling. 2 words arrive in his head, in something that is not quite a voice. I need it. Give me. Analysis says it is lesser Tidemother blood, poison if swallowed, and interesting if used on equipment or in concoctions. Valyr moves the vial closer to the spear and the trembling gets worse, until the spear gives him the distinct impression that it would like to eat the glass as well. He asks whether he can have more. Tristan says he would feel like he was losing out by handing them over free, and asks what he gets in return. Valyr offers to let him watch what happens when the two meet. Tristan says deal before the sentence is finished, and admits he was waiting for exactly that offer. Then he mentions, unprompted, that he cannot get a weapon bond himself because he fights with his fists and does not use weapons. Valyr asks what is stopping him from forging metal knuckles. Tristan goes completely silent, picks up the box, and leaves the inn at speed, saying over his shoulder that Valyr has just given him an idea. Damien leaves shortly after, and Valyr, who has noticed something, announces that he is full and walks out with him. Halfway back to the barracks, he says it out loud. Damien is not good with crowds, which is a funny problem for the leader of the village guards to have. Damien flinches, then admits it. It is the social part. 10 people talking at him at once and his brain quietly gives up. Valyr asks whether he was actually full when he left. Damien says they are in the same boat, and both of them laugh. Then Damien says he still does not think the village has repaid him properly, and offers another reward. Valyr politely declines, he has plenty. So Damien rephrases it as a gift instead, which cannot be politely declined, and asks whether Valyr is going to accept. Valyr, cornered, accepts. The gift is 1 skill from the contribution point shop, free with no restrictions. Any skill, including the ones that require the rank of guard leader. Valyr asks whether that includes special skills. Damien smiles the smile of a man who has been waiting for that question and says he was hoping he would ask. Special skills are not single moves. They are whole styles, a set of techniques that unlock progressively as the user meets harder and harder conditions, ending in one final technique that outclasses skills built purely to destroy things. Valyr has wanted one since his first day, when Damien mentioned them in passing on a tour. He goes through the shop ignoring everything at the lower ranks, finds what he is looking for at the top, and cannot quite believe a village this size is holding it. Serpent Spear combat style. 5 moves, 1 defensive and 4 offensive, each more lethal than the last, built on the idea that a spear is a snake, a hunter that kills its prey in 1 strike. It is his old bread and butter, and it carries a plus modifier, which means it is unusually strong for its grade and, more importantly, that it can evolve. He tells Damien, and Damien says good choice and hands it over. Back in his room, Valyr also buys 2 skills he had originally planned to earn the hard way, on the entirely reasonable grounds that he now has the points and there is no prize for doing it the slow way. 2 of the 4 skills his chosen class requires. 2 to go. The next morning he takes the vials to the smithy, where Tristan greets him as the tidebreaker, which makes Valyr turn straight around and head for the door, announcing that he will test the blood outside the village by himself. Tristan crosses the room at full speed to physically stop him and apologizes, and Valyr explains what is actually wrong. He hates being followed and watched over one impressive afternoon. Tristan says Damien feels exactly the same way. As for himself, he loved it. He bathed in it. Then Valyr puts the spear on the floor and pours a vial over it. It drinks it. Not soaks, drinks, the surface going dry as the wood underneath turns faintly red. They wash it clean to check, and it is still red. Valyr checks the bond and finds the spear asking for more. So he pours another, and another. Tristan, who has poured a second vial on plenty of equipment and only ever had to mop the floor afterwards, watches an object he thought he understood absorb the lot, going from red to bright red to a deepening crimson, and eventually has to fetch the whole box. 20 vials in, the spear tells Valyr it cannot take any more. There is a thump from somewhere inside the wood, and the outer layer flakes off in pieces like something shedding skin. What is underneath is smooth, dark and deep crimson, with fine tendrils curling out from the base of the spearhead in a shape borrowed from the Tidemother's legs. The system calls it a transmutation. The wooden spear now has a name. Tide Blood Spear. Common plus, attack more than triple what it was, and a skill of its own that jets blood out of the butt of the shaft to throw the wielder forward into a thrust, and converts part of the damage it deals back into the wielder's own health. Lifesteal. On a spear. Handed to a man who is not a vampire and whose class has nothing to do with blood. Tristan takes one look at all of it and announces that he is definitely forging himself a pair of metal knuckles now. And when Valyr points out that he might credit the person whose idea it was, Tristan tells him he came up with it entirely by himself. Then he sits Valyr down at the anvil, because the tide is over and the promise was that he could forge as much as he wants. 3 attempts a day, though, because the walls are still broken and the village has no stonemasons worth the name, so their only blacksmith has been drafted. Valyr forges 3 daggers and deliberately fails all 3, taking care to make each one visibly better than the last so that the day he finally succeeds will look like progress instead of a confession. The second one is close enough that Tristan leans in, and then it dies at the final step. That afternoon he tries out his new spear on a training dummy, and the first skill punches straight through it, and the second one, aimed downward through the head, destroys the dummy outright and scatters it across the field. Which leaves one problem. The last 2 skills he needs for his class are not sold anywhere nearby. The closest place that has them is Anadhar City, and getting there and back is a couple of weeks at best. He says out loud, to nobody, that it would have been nice to have a companion for the trip. Then a voice behind him asks whether he said Anadhar City. It is the oddball. The man from his first day in the village, the one who studies a training dummy like a scholar instead of hitting it like a fighter, and who has apparently been in that field every single time Valyr has walked through it. He has been meaning to travel to Anadhar for a while. He only needed someone to go with. Valyr says he does not mind, but the man could start by giving his name. The man gives a small polite bow, apologizes for his manners, and introduces himself. Wells Anadhar. Valyr makes him repeat it, and the name does not improve on a second hearing. The Anadhar family are nobles. The Algery kingdom cannot personally govern every settlement out at its edges, so it appointed clans and families to hold those territories with the kingdom's own authority. Most of them started out doing the job. Most of them, given a few generations, forgot the job entirely and kept the authority. The Anadhars are that kind. Valyr met them in his first life and came away hating them. So there is some heat in his voice when he asks what somebody that esteemed is doing out here. Wells takes it without firing back. He is the eldest son and the eventual mayor of Anadhar City. He was sent to Astarto village by his parents specifically so that he would not grow up believing he was above ordinary people. And, he adds, the disgust on their faces while they said it made it very clear that they had gone through the same exercise and learned nothing from it. Valyr's opinion of him goes up several notches on the spot. The family has signaled him to come home. The monster tide seems to have given them a reason. And the reason he needs a traveling companion is not security or company. It is that he does not know the way back. He could ask anyone in the village and they would tell him. He cannot make himself do it. So they go and ask Damien for leave, and Wells discovers that Damien remembers him perfectly, because his parents gave the guard leader a very hard time about enlisting their son, throwing their titles around the whole while. Wells experiences second-hand embarrassment on behalf of his own bloodline. Valyr expects the request to be refused. The village is in the middle of repairing itself and walking out now looks bad. Damien approves it in one sentence and explains why in one more. Valyr helped when the village needed it, so the least the village can do is let him go and do what he needs to do. Wells pays for the entire journey, because Valyr has about a dozen silver to his name and Wells has the reflex of a man who solves problems with money. He buys a carriage with a roof and suspension when Valyr says a plain cart would be fine, then buys 2 of the best horses in the village. The road takes 10 days and mostly consists of 2 people getting to know each other. Wells explains why he picked the one posting nobody picks. Nothing in the rules stops a young Anadhar from spending their exile in a comfortable town still inside family territory, still enjoying every perk of the name, and that is what almost all of them do. Wells went as far away as the map allowed because he hates the politics of nobility, the schemes, the lies, all of it, and one choice put it out of reach. And in that village he found the thing he actually wants, which is to study the spear and take it as far as it goes. He says that part with a grin, and then remembers where the carriage is heading, and the grin dies. So Valyr gives him something back, in the only form he can. He says that a long time ago he made a serious mistake that destroyed the life he knew, and that he was not the only one. Plenty of people made the same one, and by the time they understood it, it was far too late to fix. He ran. He wandered. He wanted to forget it. Then he got to Astarto village, took a spear off Damien, and thought, There is no point mulling over the past. Every word of that is true. Wells has no way of knowing which world it happened in. Somewhere on the road, Wells fights a wild monster and Valyr finally sees what all that strange training was for. The man has essentially no combat experience and every movement is flawless. It is like watching a textbook stand up and walk around. Then the walls of Anadhar City come up over the horizon, and both of their palms chime at once. 30 days until the beta opens. Wells reads it and says only that a month remains. Valyr asks whether he has any idea what happens in 30 days, and Wells says no, only a feeling that he should be getting ready for something and no idea what. So the NPCs of this world know nothing about players until players arrive, which Valyr files away as a fact worth knowing. At the gate, a guard takes one closer look at Wells, gasps, whispers to his partner, and both of them bow and welcome the esteemed Sir home. Wells thanks them politely as they pass through. Behind the carriage, the two guards stare at each other in disbelief. A nobleman said thank you to them. One of them announces he now has a story for his family. That is the last pleasant thing that happens in Anadhar City. Halfway to the manor, a man in black steps into the road, and Valyr hauls on the reins, and the man uses the stop to jump for Wells' throat with a poisoned dagger. Valyr moves. He is fast enough to choose how to do it, so he drives the blunt end of the spear into the man's sternum, minimum damage, maximum pain, and the assassin goes into a food stall. And then the street decides who the villain is. The man in black gets up, in agony, and shouts at Valyr for protecting a nobleman, and asks whether he has no shame. The crowd, with no context, takes his side instantly. Valyr's reputation in the city drops on the spot to slight disdain, and he stands there genuinely confused about what he has done wrong. Wells watches the whole thing with total indifference, which unsettles Valyr more than the assassination did. His explanation is short. People do not look at individual nobles. They look at the family's defining characteristics. You get used to it. Valyr asks whether everyone else in that family really is that bad, and gets a bitter smile instead of an answer. The closer they get to the manor, the louder the abuse gets from the street, until they reach a ring of armored guards and the shouting stops all at once. Then Wells gets down, and the guards crowd around him delighted that the eldest son has come home, and he throws Valyr a small satchel as thanks. There are a dozen gold coins in it. And then, at the last moment, Wells realizes he never got his friend's full name, and asks for it. Valyr gives it. Wells' eyes go wide, and Valyr is already gone before he can ask anything. And Wells walks into the manor laughing quietly to himself about the fact that the man he befriended in a border village outranks him. Zyhart, he says to himself, I think I owe you one. Valyr, meanwhile, drives to the entertainment district, pays a restaurant worker in silver to mind the carriage, and walks into an alley between two buildings that comes out somewhere else entirely. This part of the district is lit with colored mana lamps and has a distinctly dangerous feel to it. What he wants is a building called the Silver Gambling Den, and inside it a man called Jekyll, and from that man 2 skills. He also has the whole conversation memorized because he did this once before. That turns out to matter less than he hoped. He gives the correct password to the correct man. Tell him somebody willing to inherit his legacy has arrived, and it works, and Jekyll comes out. A man in a dark tuxedo with a scar running from his forehead through his right eye and the bearing of somebody who fights far more than he deals cards. And then the script goes off the rails. Jekyll immediately sees that Valyr does not care about any legacy and asks what he actually wants, and Valyr, following memory instead of the room, says he wants to learn how to gamble. Wrong answer. The notification he gets is not the quest he was expecting. Jekyll laughs at him, brings out cups and a ball far earlier than he should, and asks a simple question. Why did you come here and ask me that? Valyr panics. He is so busy trying to steer the conversation back onto rails that he stops hearing the question at all, has to ask for it to be repeated, and then admits he has no particular reason. Which is when Jekyll works out that he has been dragged out here to have his time wasted, and the room starts emptying because people can feel what is coming off him. Valyr runs analysis and gets a wall of question marks. That only happens with something at least 25 levels above you. He gets 3 seconds. He uses about half of one. He tells the truth, he came for 2 specific skills. The pressure vanishes instantly, and Jekyll laughs and tells him he should have opened with that, because aside from people who stab him in the back, what he hates most is liars. Then he releases his aura at full strength for 1 second, purely so Valyr understands what almost happened, and Valyr nearly goes down. And then he offers him the test anyway. 3 rounds of find the ball, each harder than the last. Round 1 is generous. Round 2 is fast enough that Valyr needs everything he has to follow it. Round 3 is not a shuffle at all. The cups smear into afterimages and he cannot track anything. But he catches something. On one cup, Jekyll lifts his arm at a very slightly wrong angle. Valyr trusts it, picks that cup, and the ball is under it. Jekyll lifts it, laughs, keeps his word, and then asks whether Valyr is curious to find out how far he can go, because the cup game is the test he gives to people he thinks could inherit what he has. Most fail at the second round. A few reach the third and fail there. Nobody has ever caught the tell, which, Jekyll adds, was deliberate. Then he shuffles the same 3 cups again, this time with no tell at all and at a speed that turns them into a single blur, and Valyr picks wrong, and learns exactly how much of that man he has actually seen. Valyr thinks about it, and realizes something uncomfortable about himself. For almost all of his first life he played this game off other people's guides. He only stopped near the very end. And ever since he arrived in this world he has been improvising constantly and doing extremely well at it, right up until he walked into this building and started trying to follow a script from memory again. So he stops. Something in the way he carries himself changes, and Jekyll notices it, and smirks. He takes the offer after asking for his 2 skills up front since he did pass the test. Jekyll calls him cautious and confident at the same time and hands them over. Then he produces a deck of cards. The game is blackjack. The rules take 2 minutes. Jekyll spends an hour on practice hands so Valyr actually understands what he is doing. Then the real game starts and Jekyll gets a blackjack. And another. And another. Valyr eventually loses his temper and tells him to play fair for once, and Jekyll laughs at him and explains where he is standing. This is a gambling den. A gambling den has never once operated on fair play, because its only purpose is to take money, and it will cheat however loudly you cry about it. Hours go by. The den fills up around them and they move to a back room to get away from the crowd that has gathered to watch a man lose repeatedly. Somewhere past his 100th loss, Valyr finally asks the right question, which is why a man who has already given him 1 deliberate tell would be cheating at him for no reason. He stops watching the cards and starts watching the hands. He finds something. He plays it and busts, and when he looks again the tell is gone. Jekyll has measured the limits of his perception exactly and is staying just outside them. So he does the one thing available. He spends 20,000 experience pushing both new skills to level 6, activates them, and looks again. There it is. Then he calls hit on a hand of 13. Hit again at 17. Jekyll's eyebrows go up. Hit again at 20, which is either a man who has found the opening or a man throwing the game away. The card is an ace. Blackjack. Jekyll congratulates him and admits he had almost given up hope. Valyr points out that he made it very hard on purpose, and Jekyll shrugs and says he had to even the field somehow after handing over 2 skills for free, and yes, he wanted them used on him. Use everything around you to your advantage. Then he hands over the actual prize. Gambler's discerning eyes, a rare plus passive, permanently boosting perception and letting the user hyperfocus on any object closely enough to see the imperfections on its surface. Valyr tests it on his own fingers and can make out the individual ridges of his fingerprints. It is not the legacy. It is the piece of it that proves he is the only person who can inherit the rest, and the rest has to wait until he is around level 30. Come back when you are stronger, Jekyll says, and disappears into the back of the den. On the road home, Valyr works out what he is actually holding. A blacksmith who can see every flaw on a surface at will is not a man with a nice passive. He is a man whose crafts are about to jump a tier. He also finds that the monster tide left him sitting on more than 100,000 in used experience, and spends nearly all of it pushing every skill he owns to level 6, the breakpoint where a skill has gained most of what it is going to gain per point spent, and past which the cost goes up roughly tenfold. 3 weeks after he left, he walks back into the village smithy, and Tristan is furious. Valyr said a couple of weeks. It has been 3. Couple means 2. 3 is a few. Tristan is very firm on this. It takes Valyr about 10 seconds to work out what is actually being said, at which point he grins and accuses Tristan of having missed him, and Tristan denies it and then admits it and then insists he was only worried about the quest. So Valyr tells him he can finally forge a real dagger, and Tristan throws him a lump of copper and tells him to prove it. This time he does not hold back. He watches the impurities burn off the surface with hyperfocus. He finds his rhythm. He turns the skill back on midwork to see the spots he has not struck properly yet, and somewhere in there he stops thinking entirely. The hammer speed roughly doubles and stays there. Tristan watches the whole thing with his mouth open, because he is no longer watching a student. 15 minutes later there is a dagger. 2 notifications arrive. The first says he has successfully forged a refined copper dagger, and that the quality has been rated exceptional, the 4th of 5 possible ratings on a first successful attempt at rank 0, which does not happen. The second says he has gained a passive called flow, the state where undivided focus lets a person tap their full capacity and ignore everything else. It boosts the effectiveness of every stat by a fifth while it lasts, and flow is a prerequisite. The classes it opens up start at epic. Tristan takes one look at the dagger, hands it back, and tells him to run analysis on it. It has come out common plus with a description saying that whoever forged it put enough care into it that a wielder who realizes its potential could carry it to the end. Then Tristan gives him the thing that is hardest to say. He has nothing left to teach him. Blueprints and technology points, yes, anytime. Instruction, no. Valyr jokes that it sounds like he is being thrown out. Tristan throws him out. Then he goes back to his anvil, alone, and says quietly that he has a feeling he is going to need to forge somebody a new anvil one day, and wonders when that day comes. Valyr spends his technology points maxing his production tree, upgrades his blacksmithing skills, and then tells the system he is ready to ascend. The list of classes he is offered is long, because he prepared for this for 2 months. Dexterous blacksmith, deft-hand blacksmith, intelligent blacksmith, erudite blacksmith, talented blacksmith, an epic class which is what he came here to take. And one more, which is only on that list because he happened to obtain flow 4 hours ago. He picks it, confirms, and falls unconscious across his own bed. True prodigious blacksmith. Mythic. A mythic class gives double the stats per level of a normal one, and Valyr had spent every point he could on reinforcement elixirs beforehand, and the ascension converts a chunk of your existing stats into permanent gains. He wakes up the next morning having gained roughly 4 levels worth of everything in one step, and having physically changed, taller, broader, none of his clothes fitting. His species has changed too. Human, first unsealing. There are supposedly 9 seals inside a human body, placed there because of what humans did to the universe back when they did not have them, and each one removed unlocks more of what is underneath. There is also one notification he cannot read, because the skill it names is a string of broken characters. It boosts every stat by 3% and comes with a line instead of an explanation. The key lies in your true identity. Find this and the truth shall be revealed. Valyr has no idea what that means. He is fairly sure it has to do with his surname because of the way people react to it, and he has no idea what Zyhart is supposed to signify either. He goes to show Tristan, who senses the change before he sees it and jumps for joy, then runs analysis and gets question marks where the class should be. Everything else reads fine, which tells Tristan more than an answer would have, because that only happens when a class is at least 3 tiers above the reader's own. Valyr tells him it is a secret and enjoys himself enormously. Then Tristan hands him the obligations that come with the rank. A rank 1 blacksmith has to register with the blacksmith guild, or the higher reaches of the technology tree effectively close to him. The nearest branch is in Dannyhurst town. Damien, who felt the ascension happen from across the village last night and has already worked it out, adds the rest. Valyr is now formally appointed a guard captain with a team of his own, which Damien has taken the liberty of naming Tidebreaker. He can also take advanced missions now, which come to the village from the mercenary guild and go well beyond the walls. And the village chief would like a word. She is already standing in the doorway, and Valyr did not hear her arrive. Alfiera Astarto is in her 20s, dressed like everyone else in the village and carrying herself like nobody else in it. She is the 5th-generation chief and the eldest daughter of the family that founded the place 5 generations ago. When Valyr gives his full name, her eyes widen for a moment too, and she puts it away without comment. Her ancestor's dream, handed down to her, is that Astarto village should not stay a village. Town, then city, then eventually an earldom. Every chief before her laid the foundations. She has finished them. One thing is in the way. A dungeon close enough to the village to matter, built for people between level 10 and 15. She has offered this job to every newly ascended rank 1 the village has produced, Damien included. All of them went in. All of them reached the end and could not kill the final boss. Valyr asks what lives in there. Goblins, Damien says, and goblin variants, and then goes oddly quiet about the boss and will only describe it as an incredibly strong goblin. Later, on the road, Tristan gives exactly the same non-answer and refuses to elaborate no matter how many times he is asked. The quest rewards include a serious chunk of experience, planetary reputation, an upgrade to his Tidebreaker title, a second title, and a title of nobility. Valyr takes it and tells Alfiera it would not make sense for the Tidebreaker to have less ambition than she does. She laughs and tells him there is no pressure at all. If he fails, she will simply wait for the next one. Dannyhurst town turns out to be a town the way Anadhar was a city. It was founded by a famous blacksmith. It is nicknamed the Little Blacksmith Haven, and Valyr and Tristan arrive in the middle of its Forge Festival, A whole week dedicated to the founding and to the craft. Registration is straightforward on paper. Pay a silver, give your name and rank, have your class appraised, forge one piece of equipment under supervision. The appraiser is a pleasant middle-aged man named Balthazar, who uses a stronger version of analysis than anything Valyr has seen, reads his sheet, and remarks that he has quite a special blacksmith class. Valyr asks him to keep it quiet. Balthazar apologizes and refuses. Every class appraiser in every class guild is required to send what they find to the guild. He does promise to restrict it to the higher-ups, which is the most he can do, and Valyr thanks him and privately hopes it does not end up in the wrong hands. The proctor is Balthazar's son, Neil, who materializes behind new registrants for fun. Valyr picks a broadsword blueprint, forges it without using hyperfocus at all. This is a formality, not a weapon he will keep, and Neil whistles anyway and passes him. Then the two of them sit down together over tea afterwards, and Neil says the thing that has been bothering him. The boy did well, and it felt like he was holding back. That is because he was, says his father, and shows him the sheet. A mythic production class. And that surname. Neil wants to know what they should do. Balthazar says they will do nothing. They will pass it to the branch head, and they will also write to the Imperial Production Guild, which left standing instructions that any mythic production class is to be reported the moment it appears. Then he says the part that explains why the two of them are here at all. Their mission is more or less accomplished. It is time to go home, back to the Algerie Kingdom. Out in the festival, Valyr and Tristan are watching rank 1 blacksmiths compete in the middle of the square. It is the fledgling forgers tournament, open only to guild members, 3 rounds, all practical, with prizes that Tristan says would make any young blacksmith jealous and consolation prizes that are not half bad either. Tomorrow is the final day. Tristan sighs theatrically that of course they have to head home tonight because somebody has a dungeon to clear, and Valyr, who decided to enter the moment his proctor mentioned the prizes, lets himself be talked into it and lets Tristan believe he did the talking.